Chapter 370. It was this prince that harmed him. Yi Junqing was speechless and filled with guilt. Master, it says that Yi Hongyi has already sent envoys to negotiate with Xia's Prime Minister Zhao Shun. What does this mean? Yin Shui frowned as she looked towards Yao Moen. No wonder Guang Ning hasn't made a move, so it's Yi Hongyi seeking an alliance. Yao Moen took a deep breath and her gaze darkened. It hasn't reached that stage yet, right? Yi Junqing felt that it was hard to say who would win. This definitely isn't Yi Hongyi's idea. If Moen's guess isn't wrong, this should be the idea of the Iron Blood Army's commandant. Perhaps he wants to use this battle to test out the strength of the Lin country. He'll know whether they're friends or foes after a test. Yao Moen felt a headache whenever she thought of the enemy she had never met. This person was too mysterious, so mysterious that she had no way of investigating him. Even the Yin clan didn't have any traces of him. If that's really the case, this prince feels that for both official and private reasons, I should personally go to Xia. Don't stop me this time. Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Moen solemnly. In reality, he felt that he couldn't just leave Di Feng to fend for himself in Xia. How could Moen stop Prince? Not only that, Moen has also decided to go with Prince. Yao Moen said inwardly that she couldn't let Yi Hongyi make the first move. This trip to Xia had to go. Before leaving, Yi Junqing handed military affairs to Huan Heng. Yao Moen left wind, rain, thunder, and lightning to protect Isol. She only brought Yin Shui and Tingyu. The journey from Ji province to the imperial capital of Xia's Linen was less than 10 days, and the journey was relatively smooth. They occasionally encountered a few thieves who either tried to rob them or rape them, but Yin Shui dealt with them all. However, what was unexpected was that Yi Junqing's group encountered such trouble the moment they arrived in Linen. To be more precise, Yi Junqing was the only one who encountered trouble. "What are you doing?" shouted Yi Junqing angrily when he saw the 30 or so guards glaring at him. "Are you Great Chu's traitor, Yi Junqing?" shouted the guard in the lead. When Yi Junqing heard this, his heart trembled. Did this mean that Xia had already allied with Yi Hongyi? After a moment of hesitation, Yi Junqing prepared to leave the city, but it was already too late. While they were fighting outside, inside the carriage, Yao Moen made an unexpected decision. "Catch him! Quick, catch him!" Just as Yi Junqing was about to have Yin Shui take Yao Moen away, Yao Moen suddenly rushed out of the carriage and shouted for her life. What was going on? Yi Junqing really wanted to see something like a secret code in Yao Moen's eyes, but it was to no avail. At the side, Tingyu also chimed in. "He's Yi Junqing. He was the one who kidnapped the Empress. Hurry up and catch him. Don't let him escape." While Yao Moen and Tingyu were shouting, Yi Junqing's side was fighting even more fiercely. No matter how high Yi Junqing's martial arts were, he couldn't stand up to the opponent's tactic of taking turns to fight. As a result, Yi Junqing was outnumbered and defeated in the end. He was captured and sent to Imperial Xia's Ministry of Justice's heavenly prison. As for Yao Moen and Tingyu, they were brought in front of Prime Minister Zhao Shun. "You're the Empress of Chu?" The white-bearded old man looked towards the woman in front of him suspiciously. His sharp eyes examined Yao Moen as he asked this. "Empress of Chu? That's right. I'm Yao Moen." Yao Moen nodded dumbly, her clear eyes like water. At the side, Tingyu didn't miss this opportunity to bow. This servant Tingyu kowtows in salute to Lord Prime Minister. Lord Prime Minister has saved Master and this servant only because Master and this servant were able to escape Yi Junqing's evil clutches. Tingyu is moved to tears and thanks Lord Prime Minister. As Tingyu spoke, she knelt on the ground and kowtowed 3 times. "Rise. Since Imperial Xia is allied with Imperial Chu, it's naturally our duty to rescue the Empress of Chu. Servants, help the Empress of Chu settle down in a side room. This old man will explain this matter to the envoy of Imperial Chu." Zhao Shun waved his hand and someone escorted Yao Moen and Tingyu out of the main hall. Yao Moen sat by the elm table and looked around the room. She actually couldn't find anything that caught her eye. Imperial Xia really is poor. Yao Moen sighed. Nyang, what do we do now? Prince is still in prison." Tingyu didn't have Yao Moen's carefree mood and asked worriedly, "The Grand Prime Minister's residence is this poor? I really don't know how the citizens of Imperial Xia are living." Yao Moen's eyes flashed slightly, the strangeness in them greater than pity. Nyang Nyang, we don't care about Prince anymore. When Tingyu saw the absent-mindedness in Yao Moen's eyes, she became a bit anxious. Don't care? Who is this consort doing this for? Yao Moen looked towards Tingyu with a bitter smile. If she hadn't been quick-witted enough, Yi Junqing wouldn't have been the only one locked up in prison. Nyang Nyang has a countermeasure? Tingyu had been panicking just now. How could she have forgotten that her master had seen all kinds of storms? Let's wait for Yin Shui to return first. Yao Moen wasn't in a hurry and poured herself a cup of tea. Yin Shui isn't here. Nyang Nyang. Just as Tingyu was about to ask, Yao Moen spat out a mouthful of tea. Is this tea? This is clearly hogwash. At this moment, Yao Moen suddenly understood what Han Jianyi had said in Guan Osprey Palace. Even Fluffy would probably dislike this kind of tea. Yi Junqing sometimes wondered if he would have killed himself if he had really married into Imperial Xia back then. Who would have thought that Imperial Xia's prison was actually open air? This was defying the heavens. Long time no see. The moment Difeng saw Yi Junqing, he gave him the most brilliant smile. However, that smile was even uglier than crying. Hurry and go in. Yi Junqing really wanted to return the smile, but the jailer behind him pushed him and he fell onto the pile of grass. All right, he never would have expected that this group of pigs would actually use bone-softening powder on him. Even after the jailer had walked far away, Difeng still didn't show any intention of helping Yi Junqing up. This prince is here to save you, so you should at least come over and help this prince up. Yi Junqing struggled to get up, then brushed off the straw on his body as he looked towards Difeng with displeasure. How much bone-softening powder do you think they could use on a criminal who plotted to murder a princess? Difeng knew the truth. In reality, he only had the strength left to smile. It can't be, right? Yi Junqing walked over to Difeng with a face full of doubt. I'm sorry. I also didn't think that Zhao Shun would act so quickly. If I'd known earlier, I wouldn't have written the letter to you guys. Now it's great. You've died before you could even succeed. It's truly a sin. Difeng smiled bitterly, helplessness in his eyes. You really killed Xia Furong? This was what Yi Junqing was most concerned about. Do you believe that even now, I still don't know how Xia Furong died? Abai was so pitiful. Zhao Shun said that she was this prince's lover. She's probably reincarnated now. When Difeng said this, his expression was very sad. I never would have thought that such a poor place like Imperial Xia would be able to raise such a highly intelligent Zhao Shun. Yi Junqing couldn't help but shake his head. At the side, Difeng almost fell over. Were these two related? Can I ask you something? Yi Junqing helped Difeng up from the ground with a solemn expression. Ask. Difeng nodded. Why doesn't this prison have a cover? Yi Junqing raised his head to look at the azure sky. It's because they're poor. The money from building a cover could have been used to build quite a few more prison cells, explained Difeng. Who did this? Yi Junqing didn't think much of it. Chapter 371. Me? Smart, right? Difeng was very proud of himself. This time, it was Yi Junqing who collapsed. Not only did he collapse, he was also foaming at the mouth. Flocks of crows flew through the blue sky, sometimes forming the character eye, Meanwhile, in the Prime Minister's residence, the servants really couldn't bring out any good tea leaves, so they all looked towards Zhao Shun. Lord Prime Minister, please don't blame me. This servant doesn't want to cause trouble for you. Your Highness is truly thirsty. But this tea... Tingyu hesitated, but her meaning was very clear. Ahem. Actually, this minister feels that water can also quench my thirst. Xiao Chui, go boil some water and bring it to Empress Chu's room. As the prime minister of a country, Zhao Shun felt very uncomfortable being slapped in the face. Tingyu naturally stopped while she was ahead and retreated back into the room. She left? When Tingyu came in, Yin Shui was already standing behind Yao Moen. Yes, Your Highness. Do you think Zhao Shun really doesn't have any good tea, or is he unwilling to give it to Your Highness? Tingyu expressed her doubts that the Prime Minister's residence couldn't bring out any good tea. This Zhao Shun has always boasted that he's an honest and upright official in Bactria. What do you think? Yao Moen sneered, then looked towards Yin Shui. Master, This subordinate found out that the envoy sent by Bactria is the new assistant minister of the Ministry of Rights, Lin Shouqing. He's currently staying at Linen Guest House. However, Zhao Shun didn't report the capture of Prince to Lin Shouqing. He also didn't tell you that your highness is here, reported In Shui. This consort expected that. As the prime minister, he does have this bit of thought. Yao Moen sighed inwardly. As expected, this Zhao Shun didn't disappoint her. Your highness, this servant doesn't understand. Hasn't Zhao Shun already formed an alliance with his majesty? Then why is he still hiding these things? Ting Yu was completely confused. Bactria's national strength is far inferior to that of Bactria, so Zhao Shun naturally doesn't dare to offend Lin Shouqing. As long as Lin Shouqing states his intentions, Zhao Shun doesn't have the ability to refuse. However, this doesn't mean that Zhao Shun truly wants to rely on Yi Hongyi. After all, Yi Juanqing's prestige in Bactria is extremely high, especially since he won 3 battles in a row. He has no choice but to consider this. That's strange. Since he had this intention, why did he capture your highness and send him to the heavenly prison instead of secretly inviting you to the estate? In Shui raised her suspicions. This is how meticulous Zhao Shun is. He definitely wouldn't publicly offend Yi Hongyi. No one can guarantee that Yi Hongyi doesn't have spies in Grand Xia. The moment Zhao Shun invites Yi Juanqing into the prime minister's residence, it's very possible that Yi Hongyi will use it against him in the future, so there's nothing wrong with him doing this. Even if we take 10,000 steps back and say that if he really does place the treasure on Yi Juanqing, he only needs to deign to come to the imperial prison and apologize. After a few words of greeting, everything will be fine. Yao Moen analyzed calmly. If Yi Hongyi's spies really are in Linen, then even if Zhao Shun wanted to hide it, he wouldn't be able to? In Shui looked towards Yao Moen worriedly. That's why Zhao Shun will come to me later to ask about Ji Province. In Shui, go to the Xia Palace and investigate. See if you can find the cause of Xia Furong's death, even if it's just the slightest clue. Yao Moen didn't forget her original intention. That night, Yao Moen was staring blankly at the food on the table. As expected, Zhao Shun came as scheduled. This servant Ting Yu kowtows in salute to Lord Prime Minister. Ting Yu bowed respectfully. There's no need. I wonder if Empress Chu is used to living here? Zhao Shun waved his hand and looked towards Yao Moen with a kind expression. I'm not used to it. The tea doesn't taste good and the food is disgusting. Yao Moen pouted, her features unharmoniously scrunched up together. Cough cough. This prime minister has always been incorruptible. This residence is lacking a few luxurious things. Empress Chu, please forgive me. As Zhao Shun spoke, he walked to the table and sat down. Yao Moen sneered inwardly. Although his words were respectful, his actions clearly showed that he didn't place her in his eyes. But Wanner still has to eat. Ting Yu. Yao Moen muttered as she looked towards Ting Yu. Lord Prime Minister, forgive Ting Yu for being presumptuous, but my master really can't eat a single bite of this food. Lord Prime Minister, please think of a way. We can't let my master starve. Ting Yu looked towards Zhao Shun with a slightly troubled expression. However, Zhao Shun's expression was even more troubled than Ting Yu's. Right now, the food in front of Yao Moen was already the food he normally used to entertain distinguished guests. If she couldn't even swallow this, then she wanted to eat human flesh. This prime minister will think of a way. Zhao Shun was helpless and could only order the steward to enter the palace to report this matter to Emperor Xia. At that time, the steward would bring some imperial food over. After the steward left, Zhao Shun returned to his room and sat down. This prime minister really doesn't understand. Since Empress Chu was kidnapped by Yi Juanqing, why did you come to Xia with him? When Zhao Shun said this, Ting Yu immediately looked at Yao Moen with an extremely worshipful gaze. As expected, the development of the situation was not much different from what Master had predicted. He's sick. Wanner is exhausted to death from such a long journey. It wasn't easy for him to escape, but he didn't even have food to eat. Actually, Wanner's requirements aren't high. Abalone, bird's nest, anything is fine. Yao Moen looked towards Zhao Shun with a very simple expression. However, Zhao Shun's face was already filled with black lines. Empress Chu's expectations really aren't that high. In truth, how have you been during the time you were taken away by Yi Juanqing? Zhao Shun ignored Yao Moen and turned to look at Ting Yu. Maybe because my Nyang Yang is the younger sister of the previous empress, Wang Yi didn't make things difficult for us. Ting Yu was completely defenseless. Oh, miss, do you know the current situation in Ji province? Right now, King Chu wishes to ask Grand Xia for assistance. As they say, only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you emerge victorious in every battle. This minister really wants to know how Yi Junqing is capable of winning 3 battles in a row. Zhao Shun returned to the main topic. This servant has also been careful. While Ting Yu hesitated, Yao Mo Wan's interest was piqued. Because of the arrow explosion rat, the sky-piercing rat, and the sky-piercing pillar. You haven't seen it yet, but these 3 items are simply incomparably powerful. Especially the sky-piercing pillar. It could shoot the black ball far away. He was so far away that he couldn't even see his shadow. Very powerful. Truly very powerful. Yao Mo Wan explained excitedly to Zhao Shun. Empress Chu saw it with her own eyes. Zhao Shun had heard of the arrow explosion rat and the sky-piercing rat, but this was the first time he had heard of the sky-piercing pillar. Your Highness is speaking the truth. Wang Yi was only able to win because of these things, and that's not all. There are all sorts of new and interesting things that appear in Ji Province's guesthouse every day. This servant is guessing that those are all weapons used to subdue the enemy. Ting Yu looked towards Zhao Shun solemnly. There's something like this. Then why didn't the people of Ji Province react? After all, Yi Junqing is a rebel, so everyone has the right to punish him, said Zhao Shun seriously. The people of Ji Province support Wang Yi so much that they even voluntarily sent food to the military camp. Not only did Wang Yi not confiscate it, he even returned it to the people. Forgive Ting Yu for saying something disrespectful, but how could the people care about who the emperor is? They'll support whoever gives them a good life. Ting Yu couldn't be more direct. War consumes the most resources. Where did Yi Junqing get so much food? Zhao Shun's white brows furrowed in confusion. Ting Yu feels that the one thing Wang Yi lacks the least is money. When we were in Mongyuan, this servant personally saw King Lulan and Wang Yi eating together and chatting happily. This servant even heard that King Lulan wanted to marry his own daughter to Wang Yi. Ting Yu repeated what Yao Mo Wan said without missing a single word. Chapter 372. King Lulan? It can't be? Are you sure you didn't see wrong? Zhao Shun was shocked. If he had King Lulan's support, then Yi Junqing naturally wouldn't be in such a situation. Of course Ting Yu didn't see wrong. When Ting Yu and your highness came to Lulan, I saw King Lulan. He was covered in golden light, just like a Buddha descending into the mortal world, replied Ting Yu. I didn't think that Yi Junqing would have the help of such a noble person. With the hearts of the people and resources, it was still unknown who would win this internal conflict. There's one more thing that Lord Prime Minister doesn't know. Prince's senior brother is the head of the martial world, Yin Nansheng. So there are always people watching over Ji Province. If your highness and this servant were in Ji Province, you definitely wouldn't have been able to escape. Ting Yu had eavesdropped on this. I hope I can help Lord Prime Minister. Ting Yu looked towards Zhao Shun mysteriously. No wonder Yi Junqing dared to rebel. While Zhao Shun was still in shock, the steward had already brought over 5 so-called top-quality dishes from the imperial palace. Zhao Shun subconsciously swallowed as he looked at the bird's nest and shark's fin on the table. Your highness, eat it while it's hot. It won't taste like this once it's cold, said Ting Yu respectfully as she picked up 2 dishes for Yao Moen. There's no taste at all. I can just barely swallow it, said Yao Moen resentfully as she tasted the bird's nest with difficulty. At the side, Zhao Shun's eyes were filled with grief and indignation. Even the monarch might not be able to bear such luxury. This Yao Moen had truly been spoiled rotten by Yi Hongyi. Once Zhao Shun left, Ting Yu moved closer to Yao Moen. Your Highness, do you think Zhao Shun will believe what this servant said just now? He can go investigate. Which part of what you said isn't the truth? Yao Moen suppressed the childishness in her eyes and continued to taste the bird's nest. Although it couldn't compare to the top-quality blood swallow from 10,000 Imperial City, the taste wasn't bad. Yao Moen's lips curved into a deep smile. At midnight, Yao Moen tossed and turned on the wooden bed, unable to sleep. She got up and sat up. At this time, In Shui suddenly appeared. You're back? Yao Moen looked towards Yin Shui in confusion. I was afraid that something might have happened to Her Highness, so I didn't dare to stay in the Xia Palace for too long. Yin Shui replied calmly. What did you find? Yao Moen knew that Yin Shui was concerned about her, and a warm feeling filled her heart. Master, it turns out that Emperor Xia has no sons and has a total of 9 princesses. Among the 9 princesses, honored princess is the most favored. If it wasn't for the accident, as the 9th prince consort, Prince Di would most likely inherit the throne of the Xia kingdom. Yao Moen couldn't help but sigh at Yin Shui's words. Just what kind of sin did this old man Xia commit in his previous life that he would end up in a situation where no one would send him off after his death? At this moment, Yao Moen's mind suddenly recalled Yao Zhenting's pained expression before his death. Regret? Yao Moen shook her head. After her rebirth, she didn't regret a single thing she had done. It could only be said that it was a pity. Inherit the throne? This is very tempting. In this way, it's not impossible for Di Feng to be wrongly accused. Yao Moen understood Di Feng's temper. Although he was stubborn, he wasn't slick. Otherwise, how could he have lived so freely under Yi Hongyi's suppression? So Yao Moen didn't believe that he had killed Xia Furong. This subordinate found out from a eunuch that besides Di Feng, there are 2 other princes that can rival him. They're also candidates that Emperor Xia has in mind. One of them is the eldest prince consort, the eldest son of the great general of White Cavalry, Feng Yuanshan. The other one is the 5th prince consort, Xiahou Yuan. This Xiahou Yuan is from the Qi imperial family. He's very talented in both literature and martial arts. He shouldn't have ended up in a remote and desolate place like this, but due to consort Hua's interference, he ended up marrying into the Xia kingdom, reported Yin Shui truthfully. Xiahou Yuan is from the Qi Empire. Yao Moen lifted her brows. Feng Yihan's handsome face suddenly appeared in front of her eyes. Ever since the trip to Lu Lan, it seemed like they hadn't seen each other again. When this subordinate returned, I dropped by the great general of White Cavalry's residence and found Feng Yuanshan's father, Feng Yi, in the side room. He had a lewd expression and didn't have the slightest bit of vigilance that a general should have. Yin Shui felt disdain. Is that so? That's right. Is Yi Junqing doing well? Yao Moen's heart sank slightly. For Feng Yi to be able to reach the position of great general of White Cavalry, he definitely wasn't an ordinary person. As for what Yin Shui had seen, either Feng Yi had gone senile, or there was more to it than met the eye. Replying, Master, Prince is currently locked up in the Ministry of Justice's heavenly prison together with Di Feng. Yin Shui's words finally made Yao Moen understand why Di Feng hadn't shown himself for so long despite such a major incident. Di Feng isn't loyal at all. He clearly knew that it was dangerous, yet he tricked this consort and Yi Junqing into coming to help him. Just wait until this consort sees him. See how this consort will scold him. Yao Moen's words came true. Early the next morning, she was fortunate enough to see Di Feng in the heavenly prison. When Yao Moen woke up the next day, she saw Zhao Shun leading over 30 guards to forcefully drag her and Ting Yu into the heavenly prison. At the same time, Yi Junqing had already become Emperor Xia's honored guest. Not only that unlucky assistant minister of Great Chu's Ministry of Rights, Lin Shouqing, had been killed while he was still asleep. His death was truly unjust. When Yao Moen was pushed into the heavenly prison, she was filled with endless emotions. She, Yao Moen, could be considered a person who had seen the world, but when she saw the azure sky above her head, she suddenly felt that she was still a lonely and inexperienced person. Little idiot, what are you looking at? Di Feng glanced at Yao Moen, who was sitting next to him, and sneered. Yi Hongyi was simply blind to have actually fallen for such an idiot. Although her looks weren't bad in the end, she was still an idiot. Who thought of such an idiotic design? Yao Moen continued to look up at the sky, completely ignoring Di Feng's disrespectful words. What did you say? Di Feng trembled slightly when he heard this. He deliberately turned to look at Yao Moen, who was sitting next to him. 9th Prince Consort's ears aren't working well? Then Bengong should speak a bit louder. No matter how idiotic this consort is, it can't be compared to some people. In just half a year, this consort went from a high and mighty prince consort to a prisoner who sits in prison all the way to the bottom. However, Pitiful people definitely have hateful aspects. The ancients truly didn't deceive me. Yao Moen's cherry lips hooked up, her expression full of disdain. You're not an idiot? Yao Moen, you're actually not an idiot? Di Feng looked towards Yao Moen in disbelief, his eyes filled with doubt. I really don't understand. Why does everyone who knows about this have this kind of expression? Could it be that this consort isn't an idiot is so hard to accept? Yao Moen sighed lightly and shook her head indifferently. Since you're not an idiot, then why do you have to pretend to be one? Di Feng was puzzled. Any one of them can ask this consort this question, but only Prince Di shouldn't. Yao Moen finally withdrew her gaze and turned to look at Di Feng. She hadn't seen him for half a year, but Di Feng had lost quite a bit of weight. However, this wasn't to be expected. Bactria's standard of living was indeed unsatisfactory. Why? Di Feng didn't understand. Then Moen would like to ask Prince this in return. Back then, why did you spend your days in a drunken stupor in Great Chu? Once Yao Moen said this, Di Feng became even more puzzled. This prince did that in order to linger on at death's door under Yi Hongyi's feet. If that wasn't the case, would Yi Hongyi have let this prince off? But you're different. You're Yi Hongyi's favored concubine, and now you're also the Chu Empress. You have no reason to do so. Di Feng disapproved. If Moen wasn't an idiot, would Yi Hongyi have doted on Moen? Would he have made Moen empress? Yao Moen's gaze was deep and serene as a trace of coldness appeared on her lips. That's true. Based on Yi Hongyi's suspicious nature, it's hard to guarantee that you won't become the second Yao Maxin. Now that they were in Bactria, Di Feng had fewer misgivings. Chapter 373. From Prince Di's words, it seems that you suspect eldest sister's cause of death? Yao Moen sighed inwardly. It seemed that there were far more astute people in this world than she had imagined. Difficult labor? Are those imperial doctors all fucking idiots? Di Feng snorted disdainfully. He still had some respect for the Yao Maxin of the past. That's why it's not important whether you're stupid or not. What's important is whether you know how to act stupid. If you act well, you'll be worshipped as empress, but if you don't, you'll become a prisoner or even a ghost. Yao Moen changed the topic and looked towards Di Feng with pity. What kind of sarcastic words are you saying? Aren't you sitting here as well? But then again, why are you here? I heard that you were kidnapped by Yi Junqing and... Di Feng suddenly shut his mouth. After a moment of silence, his eyes turned sinister. Yao Moen, back then, was it you who tricked this prince into Harmony Palace? Was it? Di Feng thought about it again and again. At the time, Yi Junqing had denied it. Since it wasn't Yi Junqing, then it definitely couldn't be Yi Hongyi. Other than the two of them, it could only be this Yao Moen who was pretending to be stupid. It's rare for a person to be stupid. Why does Prince have to be so calculative? Yao Moen felt that rather than carefully hiding it, it was better to openly admit it. This prince is calculative? You still have the nerve to say that this prince is calculative? You. Di Feng waved his fist around for a long time, but it didn't fall. Yao Moen rejoiced for Di Feng. If he dared to swing it down, the one who would suffer wouldn't be her. Prince doesn't plan on teaching this consort a lesson? Yao Moen looked towards Di Feng curiously. Forget it. Everyone has their own fate. No one can guarantee that this prince will live longer in Great Chu than here. Di Feng smiled wryly. Moen is very gratified that Prince has this kind of awareness. Don't worry, with Moen here, you won't die. Yao Moen vowed solemnly. Di Feng snorted disdainfully. Right at this time, it started to drizzle. Yao Moen was at a loss. Di Feng suddenly pulled out a wooden plank from the wall and inserted it into a crack in the wall to block out the rain. How creative. Who designed this prison? Yao Moen wanted to cry but had no tears. This king. How about it? Di Feng didn't hear the derogatory tone in Yao Moen's words at all and pointed at himself proudly. In Shui, how about telling him? Yao Moen called out to In Shui very gently. A moment later, Di Feng lost in a very logical manner. At this moment, Yao Moen was already sitting under the wooden plank. She was leisurely looking towards Di Feng, who was standing alone in the rain. Yao Moen, you're a bully. The rain became heavier, and Di Feng was instantly drenched. Bully? Did you think that Bin Gong was scolding you for nothing? Said Yao Moen resentfully. Only now did Di Feng realize that Yao Moen had been holding a grudge all this time. On the second day after Yao Moen was locked up, Zhao Shun appeared outside the prison cell with a group of attendants. This old subject has eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. I have wronged Empress Chu. Please forgive me, Empress Chu. Seeing Zhao Shun like this, Yao Moen knew that Yi Junqing must have said something, so there was no need to keep pretending. The ignorant can't be blamed. It's Moen's honor that Prime Minister has personally come to the heavenly prison to apologize. Yao Moen restrained the expression in her eyes and looked towards Zhao Shun warmly. Empress Chu, please. Zhao Shun looked respectful on the surface, but he was feeling very sullen inside. Since Yao Moen wasn't stupid, she had clearly been torturing him last night. Based on Yao Moen's experience with countless people, she could naturally guess that Zhao Shun was being petty. However, she didn't care and just turned to look at Di Feng. Great Chu actually produced such a beast-like prince. Moen is truly ashamed. Moen will definitely have Emperor Xia punish this matter. Di Feng, you've truly disappointed Bin Gong. Yao Moen turned around coldly and walked out of the heavenly prison without hesitation. After everyone left, Di Feng finally became angry. Yao Moen, are you even human? Is it? After Yao Moen left the heavenly prison, she was directly brought into Xia Palace by Zhao Shun. Tingyu was naturally released as well to follow Yao Moen. When Yao Moen first entered Chengqian Palace, she thought that she had entered a latrine in 10,000 Emperor's City. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that Chengqian Palace's decor was very ordinary. Moen, are you all right? The moment Yao Moen stepped through the palace doors, Yi Junqing had already stood up to greet her. Moen is fine. I've caused Prince to worry. Great Chu's Yao Moen kowtows in salute to Emperor Xia. Yao Moen purposely kept her distance from Yi Junqing as she walked respectfully to the old man sitting in the main seat and bowed. During this period of turmoil, she definitely couldn't spread any rumors with Yi Junqing. People's hearts were the most fickle. If she made the slightest mistake, she would cause Yi Junqing to suffer a crushing defeat. Empress Chu is too courteous. Servants, grant him a seat. Emperor Xia stroked his white beard, his face full of kindness. This made Yao Moen think of Yao Tuesday. Back when she was rescued and brought back to Ji Province, she had gone to Mengyuan to see Yao Tuesday. Unfortunately, the house was empty and Yao Tu had left out of self-blame. Before Yao Moen left, she had told Bin Lei to find Yao Tu no matter what. The kindness of a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. Yao Moen deeply understood this principle. Moen thanks Emperor Xia. Yao Moen smiled slightly, then sat down on the rattan chair to Yi Junqing's right. Perhaps it was because of the rattan produced in Xia, but this rattan chair was even more comfortable than the ones in Chu's palace. Esteemed Prince, my master has already abandoned Yi Hongyi and is willing to sign an alliance with your highness. He hopes that your highness will carefully consider this matter. In order to express his sincerity, my master has ordered this old subject to kill the envoy Yi Hongyi sent, Lin Shouqing. Zhao Shun, who was sitting across from Yi Junqing, respectfully stood up and sincerely suggested this. At the side, Yao Moen's eyes trembled slightly, then she quietly asked Yi Junqing, "You didn't agree?" Yao Moen felt that no matter which angle she looked at this matter from, they didn't have the qualifications to keep the other party in suspense. They didn't let you go. So how could this prince agree? Yi Junqing's eyes shone brilliantly, as if they were shining into Yao Moen's heart and sweeping away all the haze. Chapter 374. In Shui, help Bin Gong make the arrangements. After the banquet, Bin Gong wants to see Zhao Shun. Yao Moen folded the banknotes in her hand and placed them in her sleeve. In Shui accepted the order and left. At this time, Tingyu walked in with tea. Your Highness, this servant has heard that the 8 princesses and the son-in-law will all be attending tonight's banquet. There will also be some important officials in court. People like Feng Yi and Zhao Shun will all be there, reported Tingyu. This consort really doesn't understand why Emperor Xia would be in such a rush to sign a letter with Yi Junqing. Does he not plan to continue observing? Yao Moen was puzzled. Your Highness, when this servant returned from fetching water, I heard that Xia's King Ping's daughter encountered Lin Shouqing, while playing on the streets and was taken to the embassy by his subordinates. That was all Tingyu had heard. Is that so? This Lin Shouqing is really something. No matter how poor Xiao is, the imperial family is still the imperial family. How could they allow him to humiliate them? If this consort's guess isn't wrong, that Lin Shouqing was probably killed by King Ping in a fit of rage. Adding on the fact that Yi Junqing has arrived in Xia, even if Emperor Xiao wants to explain, with Yi Hongyi's suspicious personality, he won't believe it. Rather than living in fear, it's better to bet on Yi Junqing. At least he'll be able to say something good. The banquet couldn't be any more ordinary, but the scene was very lively. Emperor Xia's 8 princesses brought their son-in-law to the banquet. Yao Moen felt that these 8 princesses were all gentle and pleasant. Any one of them would be more pleasing to the eye than Xia Furong. She didn't know if there was something wrong with Emperor Xia's eyes. Perhaps the one he dotes on the most is the craftiest one. Right now, the ones standing in the center were the 5th princess and her son-in-law, Xiahou Yuan. Xiahou Yuan was handsome and elegant. His eyes were bright and full of expression, and his figure was tall and strong. Perhaps it was because she loved the house and its crow, but Yao Moen's relationship with Feng Yihan wasn't bad. She naturally felt goodwill towards this Xiahou Yuan of Qi, who had also been persecuted by consort Hua. After the 5th princess and Xiahou Yuan took their seats, the eldest princess and Feng Yuanshan arrived. Yao Moen carefully examined Feng Yuanshan. He had dark skin and sharp brows. As expected, he was the descendant of a general family. He had an indescribably domineering aura. Seeing that all 8 princesses had arrived, Yao Moen reflexively glanced at Emperor Xia. Although Emperor Xia had a smile on his face, his eyes were filled with sorrow. Yao Moen knew that he was too sad. Next, it was time for the important officials of the court to take their seats. What surprised Yao Moen was that the wife Feng Yi brought wasn't his first wife. A wife who has gone through hardships doesn't leave the hall. This Feng Yi is a bit too heartless, muttered Yao Moen. How do you know that the person next to Feng Yi isn't his wife? Yi Junqing moved closer to Yao Moen and asked disapprovingly, does Prince think that this 16-year-old beauty can give birth to a son as tall and sturdy as eldest prince's son-in-law? Yao Moen felt that Yi Junqing's question was practically idiotic. How would this prince know that the eldest son-in-law was Feng Yi's son? Yi Junqing felt wronged. If that's true, then Feng Yi matured too late. Yao Moen shook her head. She had always thought that Yi Junqing's logic was pretty good, but it turned out she was wrong. If that's true, then it can only mean that Feng Yi matured too late. Yao Moen shook her head. She had always thought that Yi Junqing's logical thinking was pretty good, but it turned out she was wrong. Yao Moen looked up and saw that the eldest princess seemed to be comforting the enraged Feng Yuanshan. Your Highness, it seems like eldest princess isn't happy. Tingyu leaned over and whispered in Yao Moen's ear. It seems like he's quite angry, Yao Moen murmured meaningfully. At the banquet, everyone toasted and drank with the occasional song and danced to liven things up. It looked peaceful, but most of the people had fake smiles on their faces. Thus, everyone felt the banquet to be boring. When the banquet ended and Yao Moen returned to her room, Yi Junqing followed her in. Prince, is something the matter? Asked Yao Moen when she saw Yi Junqing walk in. Nothing, it's just a cup of tea. Yi Junqing said matter-of-factly with a light smile. Is there no tea in Prince's room? If there isn't, Moen can have Tingyu brew it and bring it over. It's getting late. It's better for Prince to rest early. Yao Moen declined. You don't welcome this prince? In his memory, this was the first time Yao Moen had refused him. Yi Junqing's heart skipped a beat, and he felt very uncomfortable. Moen just feels that it's getting late. Yao Moen smiled gently. Oh, then you should rest early too. Yi Junqing nodded reflexively and turned around. After a moment of hesitation, he walked onto the stone bridge. Yao Moen only turned around after Yi Junqing closed the door. Your Highness, actually, this servant feels that it's still early. Tingyu laughed dryly, but didn't get a response from Yao Moen. She could only restrain her smile and respectfully wait by Yao Moen's side. Tingyu, did you notice that during the entire banquet, almost every important official in court toasted Zhao Shun, with the exception of Feng Yi? Yao Moen slowly sat down on the chair with a solemn expression. Did I? This servant was only paying attention to the first and fifth son-in-law. I didn't pay much attention to the others. But what does this mean? Asked Ting Yu in confusion. It means that Zhao Shun and Feng Yi aren't on good terms. He's not even willing to put on a show. Yao Mowen's eyes darkened. At this time, Shui floated over and nodded towards Yao Mowen. Ting Yu, stay here to keep watch. If anyone asks, just say that this consort is sleeping, understood? After Yao Mowen instructed Ting Yu, she left Xiao Palace with Shui and headed straight for the Prime Minister's residence. The Prime Minister's residence's stone room could be considered spacious and bright, but the facilities were much worse. Normally, a sealed room like this would be extremely dark, so luminous pearls were the best choice for illumination. Unfortunately, there were only 5 torches lit in the stone room. The smoke from the torches made Yao Mowen's eyes feel unbearably dry. This old man kowtows in salute to Empress Chu. May I ask why Empress Chu wishes to see this old man? Zhao Shun bowed respectfully when he saw Yao Mowen walk in. Prime Minister Zhao, please sit. After Yao Mowen sat down, she raised her hand and gestured for Zhao Shun to sit. Zhao Shun didn't act pretentiously and got up to sit in front of Yao Mowen. The Grand Prime Minister's residence can't even take out a night pearl? Yao Mowen looked around and spoke indifferently. Zhao Shun instantly felt a bit awkward. If Empress Chu has something to say, then speak frankly. This old man is all ears. In the end, he was the prime minister of a dynasty and had some shrewdness. Yao Mowen was speechless. Her cherry lips smiled faintly. Then she took out 100,000 taels of gold and placed it on the stone table. This is... Zhao Shun looked suspiciously at the banknote on the table. When he saw the amount, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. However, he recovered in an instant. What does Empress Chu mean by this? Although Xia is poor, people are not short of ambition. Empress Chu doesn't need to use this kind of thing to humiliate this old man. Zhao Shun was angry. Prime Minister Zhao has misunderstood. This 100,000 gold is only a deposit. This consort wants to order 500,000 rattan chairs in Xia. Yao Mowen had already expected that Zhao Shun wasn't someone who would be short-handed, so even if she wanted to bribe him with money, she had to think of an excuse. Rattan chairs? Is Empress Chu talking about this kind of rattan chair? Zhao Shun pointed at the chair he was sitting on in astonishment. That's right, it's this kind of rattan chair. However, the rattan chairs in Prime Minister Zhao's residence are too simple. If you put some effort into the weaving, I believe they'll sell very well. Yao Mowen gave a simple suggestion. Empress Chu isn't joking, right? Not to mention 500,000. Even 5 million wouldn't be worth 100,000 gold. Zhao Shun smiled bitterly. Chapter 375. Whether it's worth it or not is up to this consort. Whether you want to do this business or not will depend on Minister Zhao. Yao Mowen's eyes shone with a sharp light. Prime Minister Zhao, you may not know this, but my master is not only the Empress of Chu, but she is also the boss of Yao Manifest Store in Mengyan. With Yao Manifest Store's strength, 500,000 rattan chairs can be sold in the blink of an eye. Shui added, not missing the opportunity. You're the boss of Yao Manifest Trade? Zhao Shun's eyes widened as he slammed the table and looked towards Yao Mowen excitedly. Yao Mowen felt that Zhao Shun's reaction was too extreme. She thought about it again and again. Yao Manifest Trade didn't seem to have offended Great Xia, right? Is there a problem? Yao Mowen gulped and spoke slowly. This old man has been searching for you for so long. As the prime minister of a country, how could Zhao Shun not want to get rid of the title of being the poorest country? However, he had no way out. Later on, when he heard of Yao Manifest Trade's reputation from a merchant of Great Xia, he had wanted to get to know the boss of Yao Manifest Trade and discuss a win-win situation with her. However, after a few attempts to no avail, Zhao Shun had given up. He never thought that he would be able to meet her in his private room today. How could he not be excited? Cough, cough. Then Minister Zhao has agreed to this consort's business? Yao Mowen sighed inwardly and looked towards Zhao Shun. I couldn't ask for more. When will the 500,000 rattan chairs be delivered? Zhao Shun put away the banknotes worth 100,000 taels of gold in delight. Yao Mowen found it easier to speak now that Zhao Shun had taken the money. There's no rush to deliver the goods. Minister Zhao only needs to order people to do it and deliver it to Manga. It's just that. It's just that this consort has something that I need Minister Zhao's help with. Zhao Shun instantly understood what Yao Moen was talking about. Although the smile on his face wasn't as exaggerated as before, it was still very bright. Empress of Chu, please speak. As long as this old man can help, I definitely won't refuse. Zhao Shun felt that the person in front of him was a bodhisattva that he couldn't afford to offend. This consort has heard a bit about the honored princess, but this consort understands Prince D quite well. Based on his nature, he wouldn't do such an outrageous thing, so... Before Yao Moen could finish speaking, Zhao Shun took out the banknotes again and pushed them in front of Yao Moen. If it's anything else, I can help, but I can't do anything about the ninth princess. I believe that the Empress of Chu has heard of the Emperor's love for the ninth princess. No one can compare to him. Now that the ninth princess has died unjustly, the Emperor will not let the ninth prince consort off no matter what. Although Zhao Shun was unwilling, sometimes, money was a hot potato. Prime Minister Zhao, what are you doing? What this consort is saying doesn't conflict with the business between us, in Shui. Yao Moen didn't expect Zhao Shun to be so resolute. She glanced at In Shui. In Shui naturally understood his meaning and forcefully handed over the banknotes to Zhao Shun. But Prime Minister Zhao was in a difficult position. I'm afraid that Prime Minister Zhao has misunderstood this consort's meaning. If Difeng really is the murderer who killed the ninth princess, then this consort naturally won't protect him. If Difeng is innocent, then this consort can't just watch as he becomes a scapegoat for someone else, right? Yao Moen simply went straight to the point. The Empress of Chu suspects that the ninth prince consort is innocent? That's not possible, right? At that time, all the servants in the princess residence saw the ninth prince consort walk out of the bedroom with a dagger in his hand. He must have predicted that this would happen to him, which was why he'd thought of removing all the walls of the prison to make it easier to enter and leave. If you guys keep tormenting me like this old man's life will end in your hands before the day after tomorrow. Difeng had been afflicted with bone-softening powder and was currently being carried around by them. His strength was severely lacking. I heard that Difeng will be dragged out by the Ministry of Justice to be executed by 1,000 cuts the day after tomorrow. Yi Junqing emphasized the word, day. This consort has already convinced Zhao Shun to postpone the sentence. Prince D, this consort is asking you, did you kill Xia Furong or not? When Yao Moen said this, Yi Junqing instantly quieted down. He looked towards Yao Moen with an expression of shock. As expected, there was nothing in this world that Yao Moen couldn't do. Huh, is this prince's character really that bad? Even you guys don't believe this prince? No. How could this prince possibly kill her? She's the honored princess of Bactria. There's no reason for this prince to dig his own grave. There was no one who wasn't afraid of death, and Difeng was no exception. Thus, his answer to this question was quite reasonable. Moen also feels that this is true. Based on Prince's loose personality, even if someone had to be killed, it should be Xia Furong. In Yao Moen's opinion, there wasn't another capable person in all of Bactria who dared to play with women in the imperial palace like Difeng. Prince, there's no harm in telling us what happened that day, suggested Yao Moen. I was afraid that you guys wouldn't believe me, so this prince went to Red Fragrance brothel that very morning. Difeng leaned against the wall and spoke from memory. Red Fragrance brothel? Yao Moen lifted her brows. Master, that's the largest brothel in Bactria, reminded In Shui in a low voice. Yao Moen's lips twitched, but she continued to look towards Difeng. This prince still remembers that Miss Qing Lian from Red Fragrance brothel was the main attraction that day. This prince spent quite a bit of silver to get her. Do you guys know what happened after that? It was now Difeng's turn to lift his brows. Chapter 376. It's not like we've ever been to that kind of place, so how could we know? Yi Junqing objected. In the entire Great Chu imperial family, from the old princes who are about to be buried to the children, only you, Yi Junqing, haven't been to a brothel. Difeng's words were filled with disdain. Continue, said Yao Moen coldly. Cough, cough. After this prince won Lady Qing Lian's hand, this prince drank and had fun with her. Calculating the time, this prince left the Red Aroma restaurant at around 5 p.m. When this prince returned to the princess residence, I saw Bai crying as she walked out of the bedroom. This prince guessed that Xia Furong was flipping out again, so I comforted Bai a bit before entering the room. However, this prince didn't see Xia Furong in the room. Instead, I saw a bloody dagger on the couch, so this prince picked up the dagger and walked out to ask what had happened. But I didn't expect that a group of servants and maids would surround me as soon as I went out. Their faces were filled with fright. It seemed as if this prince had killed Xia Furong. But when this prince returned, Xia Furong was unexpectedly lying on the soft couch. Moreover, her body had been stabbed until it looked like a sieve. Di Feng smiled bitterly. Does Prince remember who was the first to run into the bedroom? Yao Mowen's eyes were deep and sparkling. Who was it? It was very chaotic at the time, so this prince didn't see clearly. Di Feng frowned helplessly. In such a short amount of time, if there was someone hiding in the room and holding a bloodied Xia Furong, Prince should have sensed it, said Inshui. He was drunk for an entire day in Red Aroma restaurant. He drank so much that even his parents wouldn't recognize him. How could he have sensed anything? Said Yao Mowen. What are you saying? This prince recognized Bai. I even comforted her. Di Feng argued. At the side, a drop of cold sweat dripped down Yi Juanqing's forehead. He recognized Bai, but he couldn't recognize his parents. Bai? You saw Bai run out of the bedroom with your own eyes? Yao Mowen's heart trembled slightly as she looked towards Di Feng. Yes, I saw it with my own eyes. Di Feng nodded. Are you sure that Bai cried because she felt wronged and not because of fear? Asked Yao Mowen. She felt wronged. This prince even tried to persuade her for a while. Said Di Feng with certainty. There's something wrong with this Bai. Yi Junqing, who hadn't said anything for a long time, broke the silence. You suspect Bai of framing me? Impossible. This prince wanted to take her as a concubine. She knows this king's thoughts. Di Feng said with a solemn expression. Your Highness is really affectionate. I wonder if your Highness knows where Bai is now? Yao Mowen was a bit speechless. That Bai was very problematic, but Di Feng couldn't see it at all. It was this prince that implicated Bai. That old geezer Zhao Shun insisted that this prince had an affair with Bai, which was why I killed Xia Furong, so that I could be together with Bai. Now that this prince has been sentenced to death by 1,000 cuts, how can Bai be any better? When mentioning Bai, Di Feng wrung his wrists in grief. The next day, when Zhao Shun met with Emperor Xia in private and proposed to delay Di Feng's execution by 10 days, Feng Yi appeared in the imperial study room of the Xia Kingdom's palace in less than 4 hours. In the room, Yi Junqing was frowning and pacing back and forth from time to time. Prince, can you not go around in circles? Mowen's eyes are blurred. Yao Mowen put down the teacup in her hand. If she hadn't married over for this prince, Di Feng wouldn't have ended up like this. Mowen, what if Emperor Xia refuses to postpone the sentence, or if someone assassinates Di Feng, or if you can't find any evidence to prove Di Feng's innocence? Yi Junqing felt guilty towards Di Feng, so he naturally wouldn't just watch as something happens to Di Feng. We'll just break the prison then, said Yao Mowen lightly. When Yi Junqing heard this, he immediately stopped and looked towards Yao Mowen in shock. Since you agreed to break the prison, why did you go around in circles? Yi Junqing couldn't understand. Breaking the prison is the worst plan. Yao Mowen looked towards Yi Junqing with bright eyes. Then what's the best plan? Yi Junqing didn't feel this way. Even if he vindicated Di Feng's future days might not be good. Prince has forgotten. Emperor Xia doesn't have a son. Yao Mowen's lips curved into a smile. You don't joke around. That's impossible. Yi Junqing understood the meaning behind Yao Mowen's words, but he definitely didn't believe that Yao Mowen would be able to bring a prisoner up to the throne room. It was absolutely impossible. Whether it's possible or not, we'll only know after we try. Yao Mowen lifted her brows and smiled contentedly. At this time, Inshui had already returned. Reporting to Master, Emperor Xia has already agreed to Zhao Shun's request and set Di Feng's sentence to 10 days from now. Zhao Shun's reason was that he had formed an alliance with Prince, so if he killed Di Feng now, it would affect the alliance. Although Feng Yi said that it would be difficult to appease public anger if he didn't kill Di Feng, he still wasn't able to persuade Emperor Xia, reported In Shui. Feng Yi. It really was him. The father and son put on a good show of falling out and becoming enemies for nothing. Unfortunately, it was too much of a test. In Shui, secretly monitor Feng Yi for the next 2 days. Report back immediately if there's any movement. Yao Mowen's brows curved and her eyes were filled with gratification. Once In Shui left, Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Mowen in confusion. You said that Feng Yi and Feng Yuanshan hated each other was fake? Yi Junqing couldn't find a reason for them to do this. Originally, Mowen was only suspicious, but since Feng Yi entered the palace this time, Mowen is certain that Xia Furong's death is definitely related to the Feng father and son. Yao Mowen vowed. This prince doesn't understand. If Yi Junqing said that he was number 1 in military affairs, no one would dare to say that they were number 2. If he said that he was number 1 in terms of scheming against the inner palace, no one would object either. This consort found out from Zhao Shun that if it wasn't for Xia Furong's accident, Emperor Xia would have long planned to pass the throne to Di Feng. His son with Xia Furong would also have changed his surname to Xia. Now that Xia Furong is dead and Di Feng has been sent to prison, there's no chance of him inheriting the throne. This way, the next best candidate will have a chance. Based on Zhao Shun's intentions, Emperor Xia already has 2 candidates in mind. One is the 5th son-in-law, Xiahou Yuan, and the other is the eldest son-in-law, Feng Yuanshan. However, Feng Yuanshan is the eldest son of great Xia cavalry General Feng Yi. Although Emperor Xia likes Feng Yuanshan, he's afraid that the Feng family will rebel in 100 years and completely change the surname of the country to the surname Feng. Thus, his thoughts are biased toward Xiahou Yuan. After all, Xiahou Yuan is from Qi and doesn't have much of a foundation in Great Xia, so he won't cause any trouble. Yao Mowen's calm analysis confused Yi Junqing. When Yao Mowen saw Yi Junqing's confused expression, she continued. Because of this, Feng Yi pretended to dote on the concubine. He even attended the state banquet with the concubine. It looked like he was trying to embarrass Feng Yuanshan, but in reality, he was doing it for Emperor Xia. Yao Mowen sneered. It's truly complicated. This prince just wants to know if Di Feng can be saved or not. Yi Junqing gave up. He just wanted to know the result. Of course. Yao Mowen lifted her brows and walked out of the room. Hey, don't go. Of course he can be saved or not. When Yi Junqing saw that Yao Mowen had left, he followed after her. Yao Mowen looked around the entire Great Xia Imperial Palace and felt that there really weren't many places to go, so she changed into men's clothes and left Xia Palace with Yi Junqing. At the time, Yi Junqing hadn't understood why Yao Mowen had to change into men's clothes, but now he understood. Chapter 377. This prince isn't going. Yi Junqing resolutely refused Yao Mowen's harsh request. Then prince wants Di Feng to die? At this moment, Yao Mowen was waving the fan in her hand, looking like an elegant and carefree young master. What does Di Feng's death have to do with whether this prince goes to a brothel or not? Yi Junqing argued. Is the prince a normal man? Going to a brothel? How many men would flock to that? Does prince have some hidden trouble? Yao Mowen glanced at Yi Junqing, her gaze lingering on a certain part of him. How is this prince not normal? Isn't it just going to a brothel? Let's go. Who's afraid of who? Yao Mowen's goading method was very effective. At this time, Yi Junqing had already stepped through the entrance of Red Fragrance Restaurant. Yao Mowen's lips curved into a smile. She turned around and ordered the attendants from Great Xia to wait outside before following him in. When it came to Yao Mowen, who treated money like dirt, the brothels naturally didn't dare to slight her. Thus, after Yao Mowen's extravagance, the brothels unhesitatingly dragged Qing Lian out from under a certain unlucky young master's body, causing that young master to have no choice but to grab a replacement to settle the matter. You're Qing Lian? Yao Mowen gently waved her fan as she examined the woman in front of her. Although she couldn't be considered stunning, she was still pleasing to the eye. This servant Qing Lian greets the 2 lords. Yao Mowen couldn't help but shiver. She glanced to the side and saw that Yi Junqing, who was next to her, was already covered in goosebumps. This lord has long heard of Miss Qinglian's talent and wanted to come visit for a long time, but was delayed by some matters. Now that he's able to see Miss today, this lord is so excited that he can't speak. Yao Moen made small talk as she pushed Yi Junqing to the front. Qinglian had been in the brothel for so many years, so she naturally knew who was the main character today. She swayed her slender waist and sat next to Yi Junqing to pour wine for him. Wait. Yi Junqing stopped Qinglian and pulled Yao Moen to the side. What do you mean? Yi Junqing glared at Yao Moen. If Prince wants Difeng to be safe, then get him drunk. Yao Moen's words were concise and comprehensive. Yi Junqing took a deep breath. When he opened his eyes again, he looked like he was ready to die. 2 hours passed. When Yao Moen saw that Yi Junqing and Qinglian were completely drunk, she got up and walked over to Qinglian. Miss Qinglian has a good capacity for alcohol. I'm afraid even old General Feng Yi isn't a match for you? Yao Moen probed carefully. Feng Yi, this servant has never drunk wine with old General Feng before? Qinglian looked towards Yao Moen in a drunken haze. Her body swayed and she almost fell off her chair. Yao Moen was flabbergasted by Qinglian's reply. Could it be that she had miscalculated? But old General Feng is really generous, actually willing to spend 500 taels to let this servant accompany the 9th Prince Consort. Do you know, the 9th Prince Consort skills in bed is KTSK. Actually, even if old General Feng didn't pay, this servant was willing to serve him. Qinglian was really drunk. Otherwise, she definitely wouldn't praise another man's skills in bed in front of another man. This was a big taboo. General Feng, aren't you afraid that the 9th princess will be unhappy? Yao Moen continued probing. The 9th princess? Ha! So unruly and domineering. No man would like her. If this servant was the 9th prince consort, I would definitely endure enough. However, old general has instructed this servant not to let the 9th prince consort know that he's giving money, so the 9th princess definitely won't know. As Qinglian was boasting, Yi Junqing had already fallen asleep. After Yao Moen received confirmation from Qinglian, she was even more certain that Feng Yi and his son definitely had something to do with Xia Furong's death. At this time, Qinglian had also fallen asleep on the table. The next day, Yao Moen had just finished washing up when she heard the sound of the door being knocked on coming from the main hall. Ting Yu knew that the situation was bad and looked towards her master worriedly. Help this consort out. When Yao Moen walked out of the bedroom, she saw a ruthless Yi Junqing standing angrily in the main hall with his hands on his hips. Prince, be careful. This Xia Palace's palace door isn't like Chu Palace's. If you break it, we'll have to pay, said Yao Moen indifferently. She then sat down at the table and personally poured a cup of tea for Yi Junqing. Yao Moen, how could you leave this prince alone in Red Aroma Brothel? How could you do that? Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Moen with uncontrollable rage. Moen was wondering what it was. So it's this matter. In reality, Prince should be thanking Moen. If people found out that Prince entered a brothel but didn't spend the night, it would greatly damage Prince's prestige, said Yao Moen seriously. Yi Junqing's handsome face instantly turned green. That night, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. Yao Moen had just seen Difeng in the imperial prison and was about to return to the palace when she unexpectedly saw a familiar figure. Master, that's Azi. At the time, when Xia Furong had entered Chu, she only had 2 personal maids with her. One was the missing Abai, and the other was Azi. Follow her and take a look. It was such a dark and windy night, yet a delicate woman wasn't sleeping properly at home. Instead, she was running around in an alley. Yao Moen had a vague feeling that there was something wrong with this Azi. Thus, after following Azi for about half of Lin An, Yao Moen finally saw Azi enter an abandoned residence. Who is it? The low voice was filled with unconcealable fear. Azi had just pushed the door open when she heard a voice from the corner of the bed. Abai, it's Azi. Don't be afraid. As Azi spoke, she turned to look outside. When she saw that there was no one around, she closed the door. In the darkness, Yao Moen and Yin Shui looked at each other in dismay. Then their gazes landed on the corner of the bed. Azi, it's really you. What's the situation outside? Was the 9th prince consort? Was he executed? Using the moonlight, Abai could tell that it was Azi. She immediately crawled out from behind the corner of the bed and gripped Aziz's arm tightly. You still have the nerve to ask? If it weren't for you, how could ninth prince consort have been locked up in the imperial prison? Abai, what are you thinking? You should know that ninth prince consort is interested in you. If this hadn't happened, you might already be ninth prince consort's concubine. Although Aziz was complaining, her eyes were filled with worry. I originally didn't want to, but ninth prince consort, on one hand, he said that he wanted to take me as a concubine, but on the other hand, he stayed in the Red Aroma restaurant all day, leaving me alone in the residence to be beaten and scolded by master. Just because ninth prince consort said that he wanted to take me in as a concubine, I was beaten so many times by master. Abai sobbed, but you can't hold this grudge against ninth prince consort. Aziz pulled Abai to sit at the table and handed over the dry rations and silver to Abai. I was also bewitched by the Grand Princess. At that time, the Grand Princess said so many unpleasant words, and even said that ninth prince consort wanted to take me in to anger the ninth princess, and that I was just a tool that ninth prince consort used. In addition, the ninth princess usually scolded and beat me. Abai was filled with regret as tears streamed down her face. Speaking of which, the ninth princess died miserably. You could have just stabbed her to death. Why did you have to stab her so many times? Aziz took off her jewelry and handed it to Abai. I didn't do it willingly. Eldest prince consort held my hand and did it. At that time, she only told me to drug the ninth princess, but I didn't expect. Aziz, I'm so scared. What should I do? Abai cried more and more fiercely, her voice filled with fear. Chapter 378. Wait a little longer. Right now, the city gate is tightly guarded. You won't be able to leave at all. This is all the silver I can gather. You should keep it for now. Aziz was distressed about Abi's situation, but she was just a servant, and now that she was dismissed, she could only take out so much. No. Z, please help me get out of here. I can dream of the ninth princess asking for my life every night. I'm so scared. Abai grabbed Z with both hands and knelt on the ground begging. Abai, don't be like this. In fact, you don't have to be afraid. Prime Minister Zhao only thinks that you have been executed. The people of the Feng family also think that you have been buried alive. Now, no one knows that you are still alive, so you just need to hide here at this juncture. After that, it will be easy to sneak out of the city. After about an hour, Aziz finally left the abandoned house. After Z left, Abai sat at the table nervously. Suddenly, she heard movement outside the window. When she looked up, she saw a figure outside the window. Abai jumped up and looked out of the window in panic. Aziz, why did you come back again? Abai choked hard in her throat. After a few words, she was already covered in cold sweat. The shadow was still swaying, but there was no response. Abai then called a few more times, but there was still no response. Who are you? Don't scare me. Abai leaned against the corner of the wall. Her hand holding the silver was trembling. The silver bag was upside down, and the sound of the silver pieces falling to the ground scared Abai almost crazy. Abai, give me back my life. Just when Abai's endurance reached the limit, the window was suddenly blown open by the wind. Abai clearly saw a figure's feet off the ground, hanging straight in the air, with a dagger in his chest. Princess, is that you? Abai's voice trembled like a fallen leaf in the wind, her body tightly clinging to the wall, a cold chill surging from the soles of her feet into her heart. I died so miserably. Give me back my life. The figure floated in the air. The dagger in front of his chest looked even colder and gloomier under the moonlight. No, princess, please spare my life. This servant didn't do it on purpose. It was the first prince's son-in-law who ordered this servant to do so. Princess, please let this servant go. Please. Abai kowtowed like crazy, her body trembling like a sieve. Right at this time, the door creaked open and Yao Moen slowly walked in. When she saw Abai on the ground who was on the verge of collapse, she felt indescribably conflicted. Due to how domineering Xia Furong was, Killing her could be considered getting rid of a scourge for the people. However, Di Feng also treated Abai quite well, yet she was able to collude with eldest princess and Feng Yuanshan to frame him. From this perspective, Abai deserved some punishment. Abai, do you still remember this consort? Asked Yao Moen when she saw that Abai was trembling in fright. Abai trembled when she heard this and immediately looked towards Yao Moen. It took her a long time to react. Empress of Chu? You are the Empress of Chu. Empress Chu, save me. At this moment, Abai was completely desperate. She immediately got up and pounced towards Yao Moen. In Shui wanted to stop her but was stopped by Yao Moen. Yao Moen allowed Abai to hug her and only spoke after she had calmed down a bit. Don't you want to know why this consort appeared here? Yao Moen helped Abai over to the table and slowly sat down. However, Abai refused to let go of Yao Moen's hand no matter what she said until the black figure outside the window disappeared. Empress Chu, save me. I beg you to save Abai. The fear from earlier still lingered in Abai's heart. Her body was still trembling as tears streamed down her face. It's not impossible to save you, but you have to listen to this consort. Yao Moen got straight to the point. When Abai heard this, her eyes instantly burst with endless desire. As long as Abai can live, Abai will listen. If nothing unexpected happened, Di Feng should have been dragged out of the Meridian Gate and executed by 1,000 cuts today. However, man proposes, heaven disposes. Currently, Di Feng was sitting in the heavenly prison, drinking with Yi Junqing. Thinking back, the last time we drank, it was still at Guan Osprey Palace. Di Feng used his hands to tear apart the whole roasted lamb on the table as he ate to his heart's content. That's right. It's only been half a year, but the people have changed so much. Yi Junqing drank a mouthful of wine, then took the lamb Di Feng handed over. Do you think Yao Moen's words can be trusted? Di Feng put down the wine pot and looked towards Yi Junqing suspiciously. According to Yi Junqing's words, as long as he finished this meal, he would be able to regain his freedom. However, Di Feng didn't understand. The freedom Yao Moen was talking about was leaving the heavenly prison, or was it complete freedom? That's what Yao Moen said. This prince is only in charge of passing the message. But don't worry, this prince feels that Yao Moen still has this ability. Also, Yao Moen said that she has a way to let you become Emperor Xia. Di Feng spat out the wine in his mouth onto Yi Junqing's face. Your reaction is about the same as Junqing's back then. Yi Junqing wiped his face and continued eating. Do you think she's a god? If she lets me become Emperor Xia and lets me walk out alive, then this daddy will kneel 3 times and kowtow 9 times to her. Di Feng snorted, then fiercely took a bite of meat. Junqing, remember these words. When the time comes, don't go back on your words. Yi Junqing raised his brows. TCH, this prince always does what he says. All right, eat your food. Di Feng didn't think too much about it. In this world, the most important thing was to live in the moment. If he didn't eat now, then when would he? While Di Feng and Yi Junqing were happily eating, Yao Moen's show had already begun. Xia Furong's residence was much more luxurious than the other princesses. Even the back garden was more than twice as large. At this moment, a white figure arrived like the wind and steadily landed in front of the pavilion. Abai, come out. The low voice was cold and sinister. Feng Yuanshan looked around vigilantly, his gaze as sharp as an eagle's. Eldest prince consort, you didn't expect this, right? Abai is actually still alive. Behind the pavilion, Abai walked out in plain clothes. Her expression was as cold as ice. Almost at the same time, Feng Yuanshan moved like an arrow and arrived in front of Abai. He firmly grabbed Abai's neck with one hand. Eldest prince consort thinks that if Abai didn't have a backup plan, she would rashly invite you out? Abai's words caused Feng Yuanshan's heart to tremble. Then he abruptly used his strength and threw Abai to the ground. Lowly slave! Feng Yuanshan roared fiercely. In his heart, he regretted that he didn't finish her off with a single stab and had instead buried her alive. Abai is lowly, but how virtuous are eldest prince consort and eldest princess? In order to inherit the throne, You didn't hesitate to cruelly kill the ninth princess and frame ninth prince consort. Abai sneered as she crawled up from the ground. The fear in her eyes turned into ridicule and disdain. Don't forget, you also had a part in this. Feng Yuanshan really wanted to strangle Abai to death, but before he could get the backup plan out of Abai, he didn't dare. I was dragged down by you and the eldest princess. If it wasn't for your flowery words, threats, and promises, Abai wouldn't have let down the ninth princess, nor would she have framed ninth prince consort. Abai roared emotionally. Isn't it too late to regret it now? Also, this was something you did voluntarily. We didn't force you. Could it be that you were willing to be beaten and scolded by Xia Furong every day and were willing to watch Di Feng embrace a beauty? Don't think that I don't know what you're thinking. Feng Yuanshan snorted disdainfully. You're wrong. You don't know how much ninth prince consort loves the ninth princess. It's said that ninth prince consort has a romantic nature, but that's all an illusion. Everything ninth prince consort has done is for the ninth princess. Abai felt that some words were really against her conscience, but could conscience be more important than life? Chapter 379. Are you scared out of your wits? This is the first time this prince consort has heard of such a thing. Feng Yuanshan coldly snorted as he looked towards Abai. Perhaps ninth prince consort was dissolute when he was in Great Chu, but ever since he met the ninth princess, prince consort has loved the ninth princess so much. Even after prince consort found out that the ninth princess preferred women, he still didn't leave her. He even went to the Red Aroma house to find a beauty for the ninth princess. Abai's words were like rolling thunder, exploding Feng Yuanshan's head. What nonsense are you saying? Xia Furong likes women? How is that possible? Feng Yuanshan was completely confused. Originally, only Z and I knew about this. Later on, the ninth prince consort found out and was in great pain. The ninth princess proposed a divorce, but the prince consort couldn't bear to leave the ninth princess. He even said that since the ninth princess liked him, he would fulfill her wish. He was even more willing to cover it up for the ninth princess. He went to the brothel with reason, but in reality, he wanted to win the heart of the ninth princess. At this moment, Abai truly admired Yao Mo Wan. This kind of lie, even if she was exhausted to death, she still wouldn't be able to make it up. This is a huge scandal for the imperial family. If I had known about this earlier, this prince consort wouldn't have had to go through so much trouble to get rid of Xia Furong. Who knows, this might have even angered that old man to death. At that time, I was the eldest prince consort, so I should have inherited the throne. Feng Yuanshan completely believed Abai's words. Ninth prince consort has deep feelings for the princess. Abai once heard the ninth princess say that if she died, she would definitely attach her soul to prince consort's body. Since she can't be of the same mind as him in life, sharing a body in death can be considered compensation to prince consort. Abai's tears fell like rain. She was extremely moved. I say, are you crazy? You called me consort to say these things? Be more direct. What are your conditions? Feng Yuanshan said impatiently. Abai thought that after the ninth emperor's son-in-law was beheaded, I could escape from Lin and with the corpse of the ninth emperor's son-in-law. After that, I would find a quiet temple to pray for the ninth princess and the ninth emperor's son-in-law. But now that the ninth emperor's son-in-law has been detained in the prison for a long time, Abai really can't wait any longer. However, the city gate is tightly guarded. I tried to sneak out several times but failed. So Abai wants to ask the eldest emperor's son-in-law to help by leave Lin and in give by some money. What if I don't agree? Feng Yuanshan looked at Abai coldly. After all, this person was a scourge. That day, Abai was not careful enough, and that was why she was silenced by the first prince's son-in-law. Fortunately, with the blessing of God, Abai did not die. Now, Abai has told the whole story to my friend. If anything happens to me, or if I go missing for 2 days, he will write this matter into an announcement and post it to the entire Xia kingdom. The first prince's son-in-law should know how much Emperor Xia dotes on the ninth princess. Even if there is no solid evidence, it will always be a knot in Emperor Xia's heart. When the time comes, The first prince's son-in-law will not only inherit the throne, but it is also unknown whether he can protect the reputation of the Feng residence. Abai had never studied before, and it was really difficult for her to recite such a long paragraph. Oh, you've become smart. All right, I will send you out of the city with the carriage of the general's mansion tomorrow, and I will give you 500 silver ingots. But remember, if you dare to leak even half a word of this matter, then even if you flee to the ends of the world, this prince consort will still have a way to tear you into 1,000 pieces. Feng Yuanshan's eyes were dark and bottomless as he spoke. The relationship between eldest prince consort and the general of the White Cavalry is like fire and water. What you said is simply perfunctory to Abai. Abai coldly looked at the eldest prince consort. For the first time, she was not afraid of the nobles. If it is not like fire and water, how can the emperor be at ease to hand over the Xia kingdom to me? Feng Yuanshan snorted. His face was full of pride. So you are acting for the emperor? Abai said loudly. This is not something you should be concerned about. Just remember, leave and don't come back. Tomorrow afternoon, at the entrance of the tea house in the west of the city, you only need to be there. As for the rest, I will naturally arrange it for you. After Feng Yuanshan gave his instructions, he did not wait for Abai to speak and had already left. In the next second after Feng Yuanshan left, 2 guards came out from the dark and took Abai away. Emperor, I did not expect Feng Yi and his son to have such ambition. I did not expect them to kill your most beloved 9th princess in order to obtain the throne, Zhao Shun said with grief and indignation. His eyes seemed to fall on Emperor Xia, who sat at the side and saw the whole process. Feng Yi had once bathed in blood on the battlefield with me and made great contributions to the great Xia dynasty. I will spare him the death penalty. Issue a decree to confiscate his house and send him away. As for Feng Yuanshan, he actually dared to kill my Furong. He deserves to die 10,000 times. Order the royal guards to immediately arrest him at the first princess residence and bring him to justice. 3 days later at the Meridian Gate. And tell the first princess that I do not want to see her anymore. Emperor Xia's voice was faintly trembling. His hand on the rattan chair was clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. I will do it now. Zhao Shun bowed respectfully. There is no rush. Accompany me to the prison first. Emperor Xia got up dejectedly. He only took 2 steps before he felt dizzy. Emperor, the dragon's health is important. Should I help you back to the palace to rest? Zhao Shun looked at Emperor Xia worriedly. There is no need. I cannot let the 9th prince consort suffer again. I cannot let Furong stay in such a dark and damp place. In the entire process, Emperor Xia only remembered one sentence clearly. Furong could not be of the same mind as Difeng in life. After death, she was willing to leave her soul in Difeng's body. Yes, Zhao Shun didn't stop him, so he helped him back to the prison. It wasn't until Emperor Xia left that Yao Moen came out from the shadows. Master is wise. I didn't think that Zhao Shun would really be willing to invite Emperor Xia over. Inshui praised. He's not doing it for me, he's doing it for himself. Think about it. With his irreconcilable relationship with Feng Yi, if the first prince consort is able to sit firmly on the throne, he won't have a good time. Yao Moen saw this point in Zhao Shun, which was why she was at ease leaving Abai in his care. Inside the prison, Difeng and Yi Junqing were eating happily. There wasn't much left of the whole roast lamb. What are you doing? Difeng asked in confusion when he saw Yi Junqing sweep the battlefield. Yao Moen said that Emperor Xia would come to pick you up. It wouldn't be good if Emperor Xia saw this. Yi Junqing casually tossed the wine pot and the remaining lamb bones out of the prison wall. What kind of joke is this? Emperor Xia will come to pick me up? Yi Junqing. What exactly is going on? A shrill voice suddenly rang out. Difeng shot up and clutched his neck with both hands. His eyes widened as he looked towards Yi Junqing in disbelief. That's right. What's going on? Why did your voice change? Yi Junqing had an astonished expression. It was clear that he didn't know about Difeng's change. You're asking me? I was the one who wanted to ask you. You're the one who drugged me, right? Hurry and give me the antidote. Di Feng's voice became even more feminine as he raised his pinky. It looked just like the green lotus he'd seen at Red Aroma restaurant. Yi Junqing instantly got goosebumps. Junqing doesn't know, Yi Junqing said innocently. Right at this moment, there was a sudden movement outside the prison. Yi Junqing didn't have time to find the source and immediately left. When he saw Emperor Xia in front of him, Di Feng became gloomy. Although he bowed to greet him, he didn't say a word. Fenger, Imperial Father has already investigated. Furong's death had nothing to do with you. You've been wrong these past few days. Emperor Xia's tears streamed down his face when he saw that Di Feng had clearly lost weight. He personally helped Di Feng up. Ninth son-in-law, His Majesty has suffered quite a bit because of you. Hurry and thank His Majesty. At the side, Zhao Shun saw that Di Feng wasn't saying anything and subconsciously reminded him. Fenger, are you still blaming Imperial Father? Emperor Xia pulled Di Feng over and personally handed the antidote to him. After Di Feng drank the antidote, he immediately felt much better. He turned to look towards Emperor Xia. Chapter 380. This son kowtows in thanks to Imperial Father. The clear voice was gentle and graceful. When Emperor Xia heard this, tears instantly poured out. Hibiscus. Our hibiscus. Before Di Feng could react, Emperor Xia immediately pulled her into his embrace and cried bitterly. Di Feng was at a loss. Regardless of how excited Emperor Xia was when he heard Di Feng's voice or how shocked Zhao Shun was, the only thing they knew was that the first thing Yi Junqing would do after returning to Xia Palace would be to interrogate Yao Moen about what she had done to the whole roast lamb. Prince's attitude is very displeasing to Moen. Yao Moen sipped her tea as she looked towards the furious Yi Junqing. The person who's displeased is still in prison. Give the antidote to this prince. Yi Junqing felt that he had already let Di Feng down greatly. Now, he had turned Di Feng into a monster that was neither a man nor a woman. To Di Feng, he was basically an executioner who killed without batting an eye. He couldn't forgive himself. Antidote? Moen didn't poison it? Yao Moen looked towards Yi Junqing innocently. Do you think this prince will believe you? You were the one who prepared the roast lamb and the wine. Yi Junqing felt that he had already developed an immunity to Yao Moen's harmless eyes. Ahem. All right. Moen really didn't poison it. She just used some medicine to change the tone of her voice. Yao Moen suddenly felt a bit gloomy. If there came a day when she really wasn't lying, would people still believe her? This prince knew it would be like this. Give the antidote to this prince. Yi Junqing had expected that Yao Moen would say this. Moen doesn't have the antidote. In truth, there's no need to take the antidote. Di Feng will recover on his own in 3 days, said Yao Moen lightly. Moen, why? Yi Junqing was confused. Prince, don't be impatient. Everything will be clear in 3 days. Yao Moen didn't want to explain. There were some things that couldn't be explained even if she spat a lot of saliva. It was better to let time prove everything. However, what Yao Moen didn't expect was that Yi Junqing actually went to find Di Feng of his own accord and took all the blame for the poisoning. He even got scolded by Di Feng. Later on, according to Yi Junqing's description, Di Feng at the time was like a brothel proprietress scolding a customer who didn't pay up. His scolding was world-shaking and carefree. This matter greatly affected Yao Moen. In order to repay the debt of her past life, she had always been silently doing things for Yi Junqing. She had never thought about repaying him. She felt that doing everything she could for Yi Junqing was the right and proper thing to do. However, even now, there were still some restless feelings lingering in her heart. Even if she didn't know what the future would be like, this indescribable feeling was already causing her to gradually sink in. 3 days later, Emperor Xia suddenly announced to the world that Di Feng was crowned as the crown prince and decided to pass the throne to Di Feng after 100 years. When the announcement was made, everyone was shocked, especially Di Feng. He did not know what was wrong with Emperor Xia. However, Di Feng had a faint feeling that this matter was definitely related to Yi Junqing and Yao Moen. It was only when Zhao Shun found him and told him everything that Di Feng finally understood. Xia Furong's matter had already been settled, and Yi Junqing had already signed the Treaty of Alliance with Bactria. Yao Moen and the others naturally had no reason to stay. so they asked for Emperor Xia's resignation. When Yao Moen and Yi Junqing left Linen and arrived at a pavilion, they saw Di Feng sitting there in a blue robe. "You mustn't come out," warned Yi Junqing in a low voice. Then he jumped off the carriage and walked towards Di Feng. If you want to scold me, then scold me. This prince has no objections." Yi Junqing didn't beat around the bush and immediately sat down in front of Di Feng to wait for the storm to arrive. "I want to see Yao Moen. Call her out." Di Feng glanced at Yi Junqing. Then his gaze fell on the carriage. "This matter has nothing to do with her. It was this prince's idea. If you really can't vent your anger, then hit this prince a few times." Even if Di Feng had profited from this disaster, Yi Junqing still felt that it was an eyesore to have Di Feng become like that for no reason. "If you're not going to call her out, then I'll go." When Di Feng saw that Yi Junqing wasn't willing, he immediately picked up the 2 wine jugs and walked towards the carriage. At this time, Yao Moen had also gotten off the sedan chair. Yi Junqing knew that the situation was bad and quickly moved to block Yao Moen's way. "If you want to vent your anger, Junqing will accompany you to the end. However, if you touch her, then don't blame Junqing for being impolite." Yi Junqing's handsome face was solemn as he blocked in front of Yao Moen like Mount Tai. The sunlight fell on Yi Junqing's face like fragments of gold. His exquisite features were like jade carvings, reflecting a faint halo of light. At this time, Yi Junqing seemed like a divine general. His resolute face was as calm as still water, and his eyes were calm. "Yao Moen, why did you choose him back then? In reality, don't you think that this prince has more wisdom than Yi Junqing?" Di Feng didn't even look at Yi Junqing as he casually handed the wine jug to Yao Moen. "Prince's wisdom lies in the fact that when you get drunk, you only recognize Abai and not your parents." Yao Moen smiled sweetly as she took the wine jug from Di Feng. "Cough, cough. Words cannot express my gratitude. Di Feng will drink first as a sign of respect." Yao Moen's eyes curved into crescents when she saw Di Feng raise his head and drink the wine in one gulp. She was just about to drink when Yi Junqing snatched the jug away. "This prince will drink for you." Yi Junqing didn't care if Yao Moen was willing or not. He immediately drank it all in one gulp, and only then did he notice that there was something wrong with the taste. "This is tea, right?" Yi Junqing looked towards Di Feng in confusion. Di Feng has always had tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. Everyone knows this. Di Feng shrugged, then made an inviting gesture towards Yao Moen. Yao Moen naturally wouldn't refuse, but when Yi Junqing was about to follow, he was stopped by Di Feng. "Hey, you don't need to follow so closely, right? Those who don't know would think that you care about her a lot." Di Feng lifted his brows as he looked towards Yi Junqing. She's Ma Xin's younger sister. This prince cares about her. So what?" Yi Junqing hesitated for a moment before speaking confidently. Sometimes we emphasize something not because we remember it, but because we're afraid of forgetting it." Di Feng looked at Yi Junqing meaningfully, then turned to walk towards the pavilion. "Prince, don't worry. Moen also has a few things she wants to say to Prince Di alone." Yao Moen saw that Yi Junqing wasn't willing to give up, so she spoke up. Even if Yi Junqing still had doubts about Di Feng's character, Yao Moen had already spoken. If he continued to be stubborn, it would seem unreasonable. Even Ting Yu didn't argue to follow them. Inside the pavilion, Yao Moen and Di Feng sat facing each other. Zhao Shun has already told Di Feng what happened. "Many thanks." Di Feng restrained the ridicule in his eyes, and his expression was extremely solemn. In the end, it was Moen who wronged Prince first. This time, it can be considered atonement. Yao Moen smiled sweetly, but her expression couldn't help but become a bit flirtatious. "It's a blessing in disguise. If I hadn't left Great Chu, it's hard to say if this prince would still be alive. It's all thanks to you that I was able to sit on the position of crown prince. Don't worry, when Yi Junqing and Yi Hongyi fight, Di Feng will definitely do his best to help." Di Feng expressed his intentions. Moen wanted Prince to say these words. Yao Moen's smile was deep. "There's something Di Feng wants to ask you about." Di Feng hesitated for a moment before speaking. Chapter 381. Miss Abai has already been sent away from Lin and by Moen. In fact, if Prince wasn't sincere, then why would you give her hope? Abai did something that betrayed Prince, but it might not necessarily be her fault. When it's possible to forgive people, one should forgive them. Prince should just let Abai go. Yao Moen's heart was as clear as a mirror, so she naturally saw through Di Feng's thoughts. This prince doesn't have any intentions of pursuing this matter. I just want to know how she's doing. It's true that this prince has never been sincere towards her, but this prince's original intention was to make her feel better. I didn't expect that it would backfire and harm her like this. Di Feng was speaking from the bottom of his heart. That's why it's said that a person's heart is hard to fathom. Not all good intentions can be exchanged for good results. Moen can understand Prince Di's painstaking efforts. Yao Moen's lips curved bitterly. At the time, she hadn't expected that her good intentions would be treated as malicious intent. It's rare that you didn't call this prince a hypocrite. Thanks. Di Feng nodded with gratitude in his eyes. After leaving the pavilion, Yi Junqing was very confused by Di Feng's attitude and only found out the whole story after asking. It's fortunate that King Xia is superstitious. Otherwise, who would believe in reincarnation after death? Yi Junqing didn't think much of it. Does Prince believe it? This has nothing to do with superstition. If Moen tells Prince that eldest sister's soul has already been reincarnated into that horse, Moen believes that Prince will even replace the horse. Yao Moen gave an inappropriate analogy. As it turned out, Yao Moen's guess was correct. When they reached the next town, Yi Junqing bought 3 horses to pull the carriage without any hesitation. Although Yi Junqing said it was to speed up the journey, no one knew what he was really thinking. Just as they were about to leave Bactria, Yao Moen received a secret letter from Ji Province. Something happened in Ji Province? Asked Yi Junqing worriedly when he saw Yao Moen's brows furrow. Ji Province is fine, but your good senior brother is in trouble. Yao Moen handed the letter to Yi Junqing. Written on the letter were the words, Yin Nanqing had been abducted by Mei Ji, and his fate was unknown. Why did Mei Ji abduct Yin Nanqing? If the person she abducted was Huan Heng or Bin Lei, this prince wouldn't find it strange. Yi Junqing gripped the letter, his brows furrowed in confusion. Does Prince remember something? Yao Moen seemed to have thought of something and looked towards Yi Junqing. What is it? That day in the Chu Palace, Moen had Yin Nanqing use his beauty to seduce Mei Ji, reminded Yao Moen. So, Yi Junqing suddenly understood and felt uneasy. So this time, it's very likely that Mei Ji abducted Yin Nanqing purely for revenge. If that's the case, it wouldn't be hard to explain why the person Mei Ji abducted wasn't a high-ranking military officer, but the idol Yin Nanqing who has the title of Alliance Head, analyzed Yao Moen. Mei Ji won't be so petty, right? Yi Junqing couldn't understand why Mei Ji, as the vice-commandant of the Iron Blood Army, would be so persistent in this matter. Women are always very stingy when it comes to this kind of thing. What should he do now? Are we going to save Yin Nanqing or return to Ji Province? In reality, Yao Moen really wanted to return to Ji Province. After all, based on her understanding of Yin Nanqing, at worst, she would just lose her virginity. In comparison, Ji Province was more important. Do you think that Mei Ji has fallen in love with Yin Nanqing? Yi Junqing hesitated slightly before looking towards Yao Moen suspiciously. It's very possible. After all, Yin Nanqing's appearance was extremely attractive. Yao Moen thought this way. Since it's like this, they're both willing parties, so let's not go and join in the fun. Yi Junqing found a dignified excuse. Yao Moen was speechless. She was pounding her chest and stamping her feet in her heart for Yin Nanqing. With a junior brother like this, there was no meaning in living anymore. Since Yi Junqing wasn't going to save him, Yao Moen was naturally happy to be at ease. Thus, the 2 heartless fellows continued to drive towards Ji Province. At this time, the carriage was driving into one of the most flourishing cities in the Zhou dynasty, Longxi. There were 2 reasons why Longxi was famous. One was that the water and sky were the same color. It was the largest brothel in the Zhou dynasty, the most luxurious, the most beautiful, and the most enchanting brothel. The other reason was that the residence of the richest man in the Zhou dynasty, Suimo, was in Longxi. Inside the inn, Yao Moen and Yi Junqing found a quiet corner to eat. The sky was gradually getting dark, so the two decided to stay in this inn. "Have you heard? The daughter of the Su family is going to get married," said a passerby wearing a long gown. "It can't be? Wasn't her engagement annulled by Phoenix Feather Manor? Who would want to marry a woman who has been rejected?" The passerby next to passerby said resentfully. "You won't marry her even if she gives it to you," said the third passerby with a cold snort. "Hee hee, I'll marry her. Whoever doesn't marry her is an idiot. That's the daughter of the richest man in the Zhou dynasty. One meal is worth 10 years of our earnings. As long as you become the son-in-law of the Su residents, that's the same as marrying a mountain of gold." The second passerby's eyes instantly lit up. "Keep dreaming. With your looks, if the girl takes a single glance at you, you'll definitely not need to eat for 10 years, commented the first passerby. "You only know how to insult me. But then again, who's the groom?" asked the second passerby curiously. "Who is it? You'll be scared to death if I tell you. It's the young master of Phoenix Feather Manor, Yin Nansheng." The moment the first passerby said this, Yi Juanqing's hand trembled, and the meatball instantly fell to Yao Mowen's feet. Yao Mowen also found this to be inconceivable. Hadn't Yin Nansheng been captured by Meiji? How could he possibly be a groom here? Thus, that night, Yao Mowen purposefully ordered Yin Shui to scout out the Su residents. The news she obtained caused Yao Mowen and Yi Junqing to feel extremely conflicted. "Master, this subordinate saw Yin Nansheng, but his acupuncture points seem to have been sealed." This subordinate originally wanted to get closer, but didn't want to be attacked by the icicle formation. Yin Shui's words caused Yao Mowen and Yi Junqing to look at each other in dismay. They never expected that Meiji would be the daughter of the richest man in the Zhou dynasty, nor that she would be infatuated with Yin Nansheng to the point of forcing him to marry her. "What do we do now?" Yao Mowen furrowed her brows as she asked for Yi Juanqing's opinion. In this sort of situation, would Yin Nansheng die to prove his sincerity? Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Mowen worriedly. He probably wouldn't. Yao Mowen felt that Yin Nansheng wasn't that weak. The entire room sank into silence. After a long while, Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Mowen. "If Yin Nansheng gets raped in front of this prince, Master will jump out of his grave and strangle me to death." Yi Junqing finally found his conscience. Yao Mowen also felt that if she didn't save Yin Nansheng, she wouldn't be able to get any more treasures from Yin Nansheng in the future. After they reached an agreement, Yao Mowen ordered Yin Shui to make some more detailed inquiries, and the two of them stayed at Longxi Inn. According to the information Yin Shui brought back, Yin Nansheng and Meiji's wedding was set to take place in 10 days. Moreover, because he was a live-in son-in-law and Phoenix Feather Manor was too far away from Longxi, there was no need to escort the bride. They only had to set up a wedding hall in the Su residence and simply bow to the heavens and the earth. "Master, this subordinate found out that there's an icicle formation in Yin Nansheng's courtyard, but it's not as powerful as it was in Chugong." In order to avoid alerting the enemy, this subordinate didn't force his way in. According to this subordinate's observations, there's a life door in the icicle formation, and there are 2 keys to open this life door. One of them is in Meiji's hands, and the other is in Old Man Su's hands. Yin Shui reported the results of her investigation. "You did well. This matter absolutely cannot alert Meiji. Otherwise, not only will we not be able to save Yin Nansheng, we'll also lose our lives." Yao Mowen hadn't forgotten how difficult it had been for Chu Gong and the others to escape. Chapter 382. Then the only thing left is the key to the life door. As long as we can steal the key, it's not impossible to save Yin Nansheng. Yi Junqing analyzed. "That's right. We definitely won't be able to do anything to Meiji. Right now, we just have to see if there's a chance with Old Man Su. Yin Shui, help this consort ask around. Does that Suimo have any hobbies?" Yao Mowen's eyes were deep and her voice was tinged with worry. It wouldn't matter if she was caught. What she was most worried about was Yi Juanqing's safety. The crescent moon hung in the sky, and the starlight was enchanting. In the quiet room, incense curled up in spirals, and the flickering candlelight illuminated Yin Nansheng's beautiful face. His red robes were spread out on the bed, accentuating his peerless face. At this time, the door creaked open and a servant girl came in with dinner. "Young master, please enjoy." The servant girl was very shy and didn't dare to look at Yin Nanxing every time she brought food over. Even so, her face was still as red as a persimmon. Aya, this alliance head doesn't eat chicken. Yin Nanxing instantly lost his appetite when he saw the food on the table. In reality, he didn't really hate chicken, but after eating it for 10 days straight, he really couldn't bear to look at it anymore. But this is what young Miss ordered. Young master, you should just suffer a bit. The servant girl was worried that this fairy-like young master would starve. Take it away. This alliance head really can't stand it anymore. Yin Nanxing didn't feel that he was that hungry. Just as the servant girl was in a dilemma, someone suddenly spoke at the door. Since alliance head doesn't like it, then take it away. Upon hearing the voice, Yin Nanxing immediately knew who it was. He then stood up. Unfortunately, as soon as he stood up, he saw stars and fell back onto the bed. Su Qinyu, didn't you say you didn't give this alliance head a bone softening powder? Yin Nanxing was a bit angry. Qinyu indeed didn't. Even a normal person would end up like this after not eating for 2 days. Meiji walked into the room and waved her hand to dismiss the servant girl. Actually, Su Residence's chicken is still very delicious. Bring it back. Yin Nanxing glanced at the servant girl and calmed down. Once the servant girl left, Meiji walked over and helped Yin Nanxing back to the table. A forceful melon won't be sweet. If we force ourselves to be together, we won't be happy. Yin Nanxing started lecturing. Happiness? Long after I broke off the engagement at Phoenix Feather Manor, I no longer had any happiness to speak of. I didn't marry you because I wanted to be happy. I wanted you to be as unhappy as me. Meiji's voice was cold and her face was as cold as ice. If Miss is willing to let Nanxing go, Nanxing promises to find a man who can help you regain your happiness. Yin Nanxing vowed. I wouldn't dare to trouble you. I found it. Meiji's cherry lips curled up into a strange smile. Really? Congratulations. Where is it? Bring it over for Nanxing to see. Yin Nanxing's smile was incomparably brilliant, but when he saw Meiji staring at him, he immediately wilted like a frosted eggplant. I advise you to be smart. Don't go on a hunger strike. Even if you starve to death, I won't be the one who will be sad, said Meiji coldly. Nanxing isn't going on a hunger strike. I really can't eat anymore. Yin Nanxing's temper flared, and he immediately threw his chopsticks. If you don't eat, do you believe that the next time you serve it, it will definitely be a live chicken without plucking its feathers? Meiji's words instantly made Yin Nanxing excited. He fiercely tore off a chicken leg and chewed on it. That's more obedient. Meiji patted Yin Nanxing's head like she was petting a pug, then turned to leave. Yin Nanxing immediately looked up when he saw that Meiji was about to leave, but there were some things that were hard to ask. Don't worry, Alliance Master. Up until now, Meiji hasn't seen anyone come to save you. Actually, Meiji really wants to know if Alliance Master's relationships with others are that bad. After Meiji said this, she swayed as she walked out of the room. When Yin Nanxing heard this, he instantly lost his appetite. That shouldn't be the case. Even if everyone was indifferent, his dearest junior brother definitely wouldn't just stand by and watch. There was also that Yao Moen who took advantage of others. She should also be someone who knew how to repay kindness, right? The night was hazy, and the moonlight was like water. Yao Moen rubbed her ears, feeling like they were on fire. Are you all right? Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Moen suspiciously. I'm fine. In Shui, continue. Yao Moen rubbed her ears a few times before she felt a little better. Reporting to Master, this subordinate has been following Suimo for 2 days and discovered that he doesn't have any other hobbies other than going to places like Water and Sky in One, said In Shui truthfully. Water and Sky in One. I think I've heard of it somewhere before. Yao Moen tried hard to remember, but she couldn't. What kind of place is Water and Sky in One? Asked Yi Junqing. It's a brothel. Suimo has already been there for 2 days in a row to find a woman called Hong Lian. This subordinate also heard that Hong Lian is the top courtesan of Water and Sky in One. In Shui had always been thorough. Another brothel. What lotus is it this time? How irritating. Whenever Yi Junqing thought of Red Fragrance Brothel's Blue Lotus, he would feel uncomfortable all over. Prince's expression makes it seem like you have a deep hatred for brothels. You should know that as long as it's a man, they would all flock to brothels. Yao Moen didn't approve of Yi Junqing's reaction. Is that so? Eunuchs? Yi Junqing lifted his brows. Are eunuchs considered men? Yao Moen felt like she shouldn't look down on the profession of eunuchs. They actually did contribute a lot to the people, but this was the truth. Ahem. Master, this subordinate feels like we can start with Honglian. In Shui felt like the two of them would definitely get into a fight if they kept talking, so she interjected, Good idea. Tomorrow, you can accompany this consort. Yao Moen felt that with their current strength, they would have to use their wits, mainly because they weren't a match for the other party. This prince will go as well. Yi Junqing was truly worried about Yao Moen going to such a filthy place by herself. That's what Moen said. Even a man can't resist the temptation of a brothel. In Shui, let's go. Yao Moen glanced meaningfully at Yi Junqing. The sarcasm in her words extremely clear. Hey, this prince isn't going to look for. Yi Junqing felt like he needed to explain his original intentions, but before he could finish, Yao Moen had already left. This prince is just worried that you'll be in danger. Yao Moen, you have to face this prince's motives. Yi Junqing cursed silently. The next day, Yao Moen dressed up as a man and left the inn with Yi Junqing. They walked towards the sky and water unifying color. When the two of them stood in front of the sky and water unifying color, a fragrant smell wafted into their noses. It was so tacky and fragrant that it made Yi Junqing sneeze. Achoo! Don't you find it pungent? Yi Junqing's expression was full of doubt towards Yao Moen's calmness. No, it's very fragrant. Women all like this kind of smell. In reality, men also like it. Yao Moen felt like Yi Junqing's reaction was a bit excessive. Yi Junqing was silent. If he kept talking, he might not be a man anymore. Throwing money around was Yao Moen's favorite thing to do. Although it was true, Yao Moen didn't throw money around Suimo today. However, what surprised Yao Moen was that she actually saw someone familiar here. Chapter 383. You're Qing-er? Why are you here? Yao Moen looked in surprise at Qing-er, who was dressed in a colorful dress and waving a feather fan as she walked in. Compared to her attire in Myriad Emperor City, the current Qing-er was much more radiant. How long has it been? You already don't know why I'm here? Qing-er's voice was cold and her gaze was cold. Her attitude wasn't friendly at all. When Yao Moen heard this, she suddenly realized why she was so familiar with the water and sky blending. Back when Han Jini drove Qi, out of 10,000 Imperial City, she had instructed Master Qiao to send her back to the place where the water and sky blending. Ahem. Enemies meet on a narrow road, muttered Yao Moen as she moved closer to Yi Junqing. You have a grudge against her? Yi Junqing felt more and more that Yao Moen was very resourceful. From King Lulan to a brothel girl, regardless of what their relationship was, she was very knowledgeable. To be more precise, there's a grudge. Yao Moen noticed Qing-er's murderous gaze and accurately described it. Yao Moen, Lotus Flower really doesn't understand. Since you've already entered Myriad Emperor City, how can you still be so ambiguous with this man? How can you face Supreme Lord like this? The shrill voice was very piercing. Qing-er looked at Yao Moen angrily. Who? Lotus Flower? You're saying you're a lotus flower? Which lotus flower? Yao Moen's first reaction was that there were many lotuses in the water and sky unifying color. Imph! There's only one lotus flower in the entire water and sky unifying color, and that's me. What? You guys don't even know what a red lotus flower looks like, yet you're throwing out so much money to see it. Qing-er looked coldly at Yao Moen and didn't smile at all. So you're the top courtesan here? Yao Moen felt that things were getting difficult. With this young lady here, who would dare to call themselves a courtesan? What? You don't deserve it. Qing-er's voice grew even colder. Of course you're worthy. Moen was just saying, instead of digging for scrap metal in Myriad Imperial City, it's better to be the main attraction in the Water and Sky Union. With Mrs. Aptitude, all the men in this world would bow down to you. Why would you care about that blind Han Genie? Yao Moen felt that if she wanted to obtain the key on Sumo's body, flattering Qi, was the most important thing. However, Yao Moen didn't know that she just had to flatter the horse's leg. Shut up, Yao Mo. You have no sense of shame. The High Lord treats you so well, but instead of serving the High Lord properly in the 10,000 Emperor City, you actually dare to make irresponsible remarks here. You're still fooling around with this man. How can you face exalted Lord? Qing exploded in anger as she pointed at Yao Moen and cursed loudly. Ahem. I'm afraid Miss has misunderstood. Moen is only a guest of 10,000 Imperial City, so there's really no need for her to serve Han Jini. Furthermore, Moen isn't fooling around with this man. Even if they were fooling around, Han Jini wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Yao Moen had originally thought that all the women in 10,000 Imperial City went there for the money, but when she looked at Yao Moen felt that Han Jini's charisma couldn't be ignored. Yao Moen, you've gone too far. Something that other people yearn for but can't get. You're throwing it away like it's a worn-out shoe. One day, you'll regret this. Qing glared at Yao Moen, then turned around and left angrily. Moen feels like she should be happy. When Yao Moen saw the door creak from Qing's slamming, she shrugged and sat down with an innocent expression on her face. With one less enemy, wouldn't they have more opportunities? What do you know? This is called great love, said Yi Junqing seriously, admiration in his eyes. This kind of expression was immediately met with intense disdain from Yao Moen. Prince, don't forget what we came here for. Without this Red Lotus help, it would be very difficult for us to get the key on Sumo's body, let alone save Yin Nansheng. Yao Moen didn't know why Yi Junqing said that Qing was great love, but one day, when she saw the two of them leaning against each other and enjoying the sunset together, she suddenly understood that this so-called great love was to fulfill one's wish. Since she's against you, this prince feels that it's best if you leave first, suggested Yi Junqing. Prince has a way to convince her? Yao Moen lifted her brows and looked towards Yi Junqing suspiciously. I'll give it a try. Yi Junqing suddenly wanted to borrow a phrase that Yao Moen often said. Anything is possible. Yao Moen naturally wished for nothing more. She really couldn't stand Qing's gaze, which seemed to want to execute her by 1,000 cuts. After Yao Moen left, Yi Junqing waited for 6 whole hours before Qi finally arrived. If it was anyone else, this young lady wouldn't have returned. When she entered, Qi lifted her brows and glanced at Yi Junqing. He was as handsome as a celestial being and as gentle as jade. He was quite pleasing to the eye. To receive such great love from Miss Junqing is extremely fortunate. Yi Junqing got up respectfully and spoke gently. You should give up. No one can compete against High Lord for the person he likes. Yao Moen is destined to be High Lord's person. Qing got straight to the point, her voice tinged with sorrow. Actually, the reason Junqing stayed behind was because he wanted to know why Miss Qi said that High Lord Han likes Yao Moen. And how can you be sure that Yao Moen is definitely High Lord Han's person? Yi Junqing suddenly felt that compared to saving Yin Nansheng, his current problem was more important. Fine, I'll tell you to give up. High Lord Han once called out Yao Moen's name on this young lady's bed. As a man, you should understand what this means. Qi felt that this was extremely shameful, but in order to make Yi Junqing give up, she couldn't care less. Silence. Yi Junqing felt as if there was a ball of cotton in his chest that was suffocating him. This feeling was very familiar. When he saw Yi Hongyi and Yao Maxin together, he also had the same feeling. I presume that you already understand. Leave her while your feelings aren't deep. Qing could see from Yi Junqing's expression that they were in the same boat. She couldn't help but reach out to pat Yi Junqing's shoulder. But Junqing isn't willing. Yi Junqing clenched his fists so hard that his knuckles turned green and white. His dark eyes flickered with extreme bitterness. Prince, please restrain your grief. She could feel Yi Junqing's bitterness as well. Forget it. Since Miss Qing can let go, then this prince has no reason to pester her like a woman. Young lady's words immediately enlightened Junqing. Come, this prince offers a toast to young lady. Yi Junqing immediately filled Qing's cup. Qing didn't refuse and the two of them began to toast each other. After drinking for 30 minutes, Yi Junqing and Qi both regretted not having met earlier. Both of them began to complain. During the meal, Yi Junqing didn't miss an opportunity to bring up Suimo. To his surprise, Qing agreed without hesitation. By the time Yi Junqing left water and sky one color, Qi had already fallen asleep. Inside the inn, Yao Moen was leaning against the window as Yao Sulwan's figure appeared in her mind. According to the information sent by the Chu Palace's secret agents, Yao Sulwan wasn't living well right now. It could even be said that she was miserable. Back then, Meiji had only blinded one of her eyes, but now, Yi Hongyi had broken one of her arms and one of her legs. Apparently, he had used a small knife to grind them off. During the torture, Yao Sulwan had fainted several times, and Yi Hongyi had splashed water on her to wake her up. Dog biting dog was a common sight, so Yao Moen didn't find it strange. Yi Junqing always said that she would seek revenge for the smallest grievance, but in reality, Yi Hongyi was the one who lived up to these words. Thus, Yao Moen believed that Yi Hongyi wouldn't let Yao Sulwan die so easily. This was also Yao Moen's original intention. She hoped that Yao Sulwan would wake up from this torment and find out who it was that made her so miserable. "Are you thinking about Han Genie?" Yi Junqing's voice was very thoughtful. That faint tone was full of jealousy. Compared to Han Genie, Moen misses Master Qiao more. Yao Moen gathered her thoughts and elegantly turned around. She just happened to see Yi Junqing standing in front of her with a flushed face. His figure was swaying slightly and his eyes were hazy. Chapter 384. Moen, if Han Genie were to marry you as his wife, what kind of dowry should this prince give that would make you feel proud? Yi Junqing walked over to the table with disorderly steps, the hand holding the teapot swaying slightly. Since when did Moen want to marry Han Genie? Also, even if I marry him, it wouldn't be Prince's turn to take the dowry. Yao Moen took the teapot from Yi Junqing's hands and poured him a cup. But Han Genie really likes you. Have you never considered it? This was the most vulgar thing Yi Junqing had ever done in his life. He was clearly sober, but he still pretended to be drunk to trick Yao Moen. He's so ugly, he's not Moen's type. Yao Moen put down the teapot and sat down in front of Yi Junqing. Under the candlelight, her face was beautiful without a speck of dust. He's ugly. But what if he uses force? Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Moen with a gloomy expression. Han Genie's strength wasn't something he could match, at least not right now. Is this the first day Prince has met Moen? It's always been Moen who uses force on others. I've never heard of anyone who dares to behave atrociously in front of Moen. Yao Moen smiled lightly. But Yi Junqing was still unwilling. There are no buts. Moen won't comply no matter what, said Yao Moen firmly. So dizzy. This prince is tired. Continue admiring the moon. With Yao Moen's words, Yi Junqing's heart settled down. Then he got up and walked towards the door. His footsteps were still a bit abnormally disorderly. Only after Yi Junqing left did Yin Shui appear. Master, Prince's alcohol tolerance isn't that high. Yin Shui's words were very tactful, implying that he was pretending to be drunk. This consort wanted to expose him, but forget it. He wouldn't admit to something like this even if he was beaten to death. How are things on Qing'er's side? Yao Moen's lips curved slightly as the vague feelings in her heart grew stronger. Replying, Master, Qing'er agreed that Prince would make a copy of the key. The condition is that Prince must send her back to Myriad Imperial City after the matter is completed. Yin Shui heard everything clearly. Prince agreed. Yao Moen lifted her brows as she looked towards Yin Shui. She felt that this condition was a bit too harsh. His Highness said he can't do this, reported Yin Shui. I really didn't drink too much. Yao Moen nodded. But His Highness pushed this matter to Yin Nanxing. His Highness promised Qi that as long as she could save Yin Nanxing, he would definitely fulfill her wish. Yao Moen rubbed her forehead. If Yin Nanxing found out about this, he'd probably be even more willing to marry Meiji. There were still 5 days until the wedding. After waiting anxiously for so long, Qi finally arrived. This is the template for the key. You just need to find a craftsman to copy it. Qi handed the template to Yi Junqing. Her attitude towards Yao Moen was still as unfriendly as before. Many thanks, miss. Yi Junqing accepted the template with delight. Don't forget your promise to me. Qing didn't waste her breath and was about to leave after giving her a warning. However, when she reached the door, she seemed to think of something and turned to look at Yao Moen. Although this young lady is the top courtesan of water and sky, this young lady only sells her skills, not her body. In this lifetime, this young lady will only have one man. After saying this, Qing turned and left, leaving the confused Yao Moen behind. What did she mean by saying this to Moen? Yao Moen looked towards Yi Junqing in confusion. Who is the man she's talking about? Yi Junqing's expression became even more confused. At this time, even the hidden Yin Shui was so shocked that she collapsed to the ground. With the template in hand, the next thing to do was to scout out the terrain of the Su estate. Yao Moen handed this task to Ting Yu. Firstly, Ting Yu was a new face. Meiji had never seen her before. Secondly, Ting Yu had stayed in Prime Minister Yao's residence for over 10 years, so she was very familiar with the work of a servant. In addition, Ting Yu had successfully infiltrated the Su mansion. She only used 2 days to bring out a detailed map of the Su mansion. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, Ting Yu did not leave the Su mansion. Instead, she stayed behind to wait for an opportunity to coordinate from the inside and outside. Yi Junqing used the template to forge 4 keys and gave them to the 4 people. In response to the news Ting Yu had spread, Yi Junqing also bought some top-grade spiced beef to give to Yin Nanxing to replenish his strength. According to Yao Moen's analysis, the best time to save Yin Nanxing was on the day of the wedding. Actually, Moen never understood why Phoenix Feather Manor didn't react at all when something so major happened to Yin Nanxing. Yao Moen was very confused. You don't understand. If the news of us saving Yin Nanxing were to spread to Phoenix Feather Manor, would you believe it? Those 2 old things would definitely come over on their wind flame wheels and capture us to feed the bears. Yi Junqing's balls ached whenever he thought about Yin Nanxing's parents. Yao Moen was speechless. She felt that her grandson's strength was boundless. The night before the wedding, Meiji personally delivered the wedding clothes to the side room. The one in charge of preparing the wedding clothes was Ting Yu. Put down the wedding clothes. You can leave now. Meiji hadn't returned to the Su estate in a long time, so to her, all the faces were new. Of the 100 or so servants, she could count the number of names she knew on one hand. This servant obeys. Son-in-law, this is your wedding clothes. Ting Yu walked respectfully to Yin Nanxing, who was sitting on the couch, and placed the wedding clothes on the side of the couch. Yin Nanxing found the voice familiar and reflexively glanced at it. His dim eyes suddenly lit up. This wedding clothes, the color is very bright. The moment Yin Nanxing saw Ting Yu, he was almost moved to tears. He just knew that his most beloved junior brother, and that Yao Moen who took advantage of others wouldn't abandon him. In order to not alert the enemy, Ting Yu didn't dare to make any more unnecessary movements and respectfully withdrew. Is that so? Isn't Alliance Head's clothes also red? Meiji didn't think much of Yin Nanxing's praise. How could that be the same? This is a wedding dress. It's something that can only be worn once in a lifetime. Yin Nanxing lovingly held the wedding clothes in his hands, his expression extremely excited. This was unexpected to Meiji. Alliance Head seems to like this wedding dress very much. Meiji thought that Yin Nanxing would cry when he saw the wedding clothes. Of course I like it. Love me, love my crow. Don't you know why this Alliance Head likes this wedding dress? Yin Nanxing looked towards Meiji attentively. His stare made Meiji's hair stand on end. Heh, you've thought it through? Meiji felt that something was strange about Yin Nanxing, but she couldn't find the reason. Yes, this Alliance Head has decided to marry you. Cough, cough. Marry you. Yin Nanxing restrained the joy on his face and said solemnly, It's good that you've thought it through. Get ready. Meiji's expression was as cold as ice, but there was a little deer in her heart. Don't go. Tomorrow is the day of our wedding. Nanxing, what do you think about tonight's meal? Yin Nanxing felt that there would be a tough battle tomorrow, so he had to conserve his energy. He definitely couldn't do it with his current physical strength. Don't worry, this seat has already ordered the kitchen to prepare a sumptuous meal. I guarantee that it won't disappoint Alliance Head. Meiji smiled sweetly and walked out of the room. When the meal was served, Yin Nanxing wasn't disappointed. Instead, he felt despair. Chapter 385. It was only later that Yin Nanxing understood why Meiji wanted to make him eat chicken every meal. She wanted to make him eat it in all sorts of ways. It turned out that Meiji had found chicken to be incomparably disgusting since she was young. She thought that eating chicken was the cruelest punishment in the world. So she thought that only by making Yin Nanxing eat chicken every meal would she be able to vent her hatred. On the day of the wedding, all of long she was filled with a joyous atmosphere. As the wealthiest family in the Great Zhou, the wedding had to be extravagant. Even the beggars on the streets wore clothes specially made for them by the Su Manor. The clothes were made of top-notch fabric and embroidered thread. The clothes all had the words, "Blessed with a noble son early," "Deep love for each other," and so on. In order to show off the extravagance, Old Man Su had Meiji ride a large horse around Longshi's most bustling streets 3 times before returning to the Su Manor to take Yin Nanxing from the side room to the bridal chamber. Although Meiji didn't think it was necessary, she couldn't argue with Old Man Su. Thus, firecrackers and gongs rang out, and Meiji rode around for a full hour under everyone's worshipful gazes. An hour was enough for Yin Shui and Yi Junqing to swagger through the ice cone formation's life door, and then openly leave the Su Manor with Yin Nanxing. After eating the beef that Yi Junqing had prepared, Yin Nanxing was instantly full of vigor. When he thought about how Meiji had treated him these past few days, Yin Nanxing returned to specially prepare a gift for Meiji. On the horse, Meiji would recall Yin Nanxing's passionate words from last night from time to time. Her red lips would occasionally curve into an intoxicating smile. Unfortunately, this kind of excited mood only lasted for a quarter of an hour before disappearing without a trace. When Meiji saw that the acupoints of the servants outside the side room had been sealed, she felt a chill run down her spine. She immediately jumped off the horse and pushed open the door. When she saw the large rooster with a red flower hanging on the couch, Meiji's fists cracked and her face turned green. "Daughter? What's going on? Where is he? Where's Yin Nanxing?" Suimo, who was dressed splendidly, slapped his thigh in anger. Old Madame Su even fainted on the spot. A joyous occasion instantly turned into a farce. The Su Manor had lost all face. On the bed, Meiji's face was as cold as a pond. Her dark eyes shot out a bloodthirsty light. If the Phoenix Feather Manor had broken their promise the first time, then this time, she had only herself to blame. She was wrong. She was wrong too much. She had never thought that Yin Nanxing would have even the slightest bit of willingness. She had actually been so happy because of Yin Nanxing's flowery words that she couldn't sleep the entire night. Yin Nanxing. Yin Nanxing. If Meiji doesn't kill you with her own hands, how can she face herself? No matter how noisy the people around her were, no matter how much sympathy there was in their eyes, Meiji suddenly tore off her wedding clothes, turned around, and walked out of the room. The moment she jumped up, Meiji's heart broke into pieces. There were 2 more people in the carriage for no reason, so it was a little crowded. Only when they left Longshi's territory did everyone let out a sigh of relief. Actually, it's one thing for Alliance Head to escape, but you actually went back to deliberately give Meiji a rooster. Moen feels that Alliance Head's actions were very unkind. After Yao Moen understood the entire situation, she spoke up for Meiji. "SK. If you knew how she'd been flirting with this Alliance Head these past few days, you might even think that giving her a rooster wasn't enough," Yin Nanxing said disapprovingly. At this time, Ting Feng was intercepting Yao Moen's group at the Imperial City gates. Ting Feng kowtows in salute to the Empress of Chu and the esteemed prince. Ting Feng bowed respectfully in front of the carriage. "No need. Why would King Qi send you?" Yao Moen was suspicious. Even if Feng Yihan had sent someone to receive them, there was no need for him to send his personal hidden guard. Replying Empress of Chu, His Majesty has ordered Ting Feng to bring you to a courtyard on the outskirts. "It's not easy for carriages to enter the city," replied Ting Feng. When Yao Moen heard this, she reflexively looked towards Yi Junqing. Since it's not easy to enter the city, then this prince will be leaving. He didn't want to enter the city anyway. That won't do. His Majesty isn't being disrespectful, He truly has his own difficulties. Ting Feng panicked when he saw that Yi Junqing was about to leave. Lead the way. Yao Moen had a vague feeling that the difficulties Ting Feng was talking about definitely had something to do with Great Chu. Yi Hongyi had even sent an envoy to a barren place like Great Xia, so how could he possibly miss out on Great Qi? Although the courtyard in front of them wasn't large, it was exceptionally elegant. Outside the courtyard, there was a willow forest and a gurgling stream. Inside the courtyard, there were hundreds of beautiful flowers. Empress of Chu and Prince, please rest for a bit. His Majesty will come over later. Ting Feng gave the servants some instructions before leaving. In the pavilion in the rear garden, Yao Moen looked at the field of pink lilies in front of her and smelled the faint fragrance in the air. You like lilies? Yi Junqing walked lightly to Yao Moen's side and followed Yao Moen's line of sight to the sea of flowers. Chapter 386. Since Feng Yihan didn't dare to let us show our faces in Langyu, it's clear that he didn't reject Yi Hongyi's alliance. Moen didn't expect this. Based on our previous friendship, this shouldn't be the case. Yao Moen furrowed her brows. Based on our friendship with a cat? Yi Junqing felt uncomfortable again. Prince forgot. There's still the immortal phoenix tail hairpin. Yao Moen's words made Yi Junqing feel even more uncomfortable. Around 5 in the evening, Yao Moen and Yi Junqing finished eating dinner when Feng Yihan finally arrived. Meow. The handsome Feng Yihan walked in elegantly in a snow-colored robe. The beautiful scene was finally ruined by a cat. When Yao Moen saw Si Qing in Feng Yihan's arms, she smiled. Yi Junqing almost choked on his food. Has Si Qing been burned by the fire? When Yao Moen saw that every single hair on Si Qing's body was curled up, she really wanted to ask if this wasn't a sheep. Are you sure this isn't a sheep? This is the hairstyle most favored by the women of Daki in the past month. We feel that Si Qing is also very suitable, so we invited her into the palace. It took a hairdresser 3 days to get this set of hair. If Moen likes it, we can call the hairdresser over. Feng Yihan lovingly stroked Si Qing's curly hair as his eyes curved into crescents. Moen appreciates King Qi's good intentions, but this really isn't suitable for Moen. Yao Moen felt that if she returned to Ji province with a head of curly hair, it would be the same as Huangfu Juanxiu parading the streets naked. Plus, she didn't like lions at all. Seeing Yao Moen refuse, Yi Junqing choked back his words of not recognizing you if you look like that. That's truly a pity. Feng Yihan placed Si Qing on the ground and got up to look towards Yao Moen. Moen, is there something on your face? Yao Moen felt that Feng Yihan's gaze was too deep, so deep that she couldn't see through it. Regarding Feng Duo's matter, Yihan owes you a favor. Tell me, how do you want to repay me? Yao Moen immediately felt that the situation wasn't good. No problem. Reject Yi Hongyi's alliance and support Yi Junqing. Yao Moen felt that now wasn't the time to be bashful. It was best to say what you wanted. Otherwise, there wouldn't be another chance. Feng Yihan didn't seem to have expected Yao Moen to be so direct and didn't know how to react. At the side, Yi Junqing could faintly sense the smell of gunpowder in the air. I'm afraid that won't do. Feng Yihan let out a long sigh and sat down helplessly. Yao Moen reflexively looked towards Yi Junqing. Yi Junqing hadn't expected Feng Yihan to refuse so decisively. He hadn't even mentioned any conditions. Reason? When Yao Moen heard the determination in Feng Yihan's words, her heart sank. At that time, she was still determined to obtain Great Qi. The left emissary of Great Chu's Iron Blood Corps is currently in the Chu Palace. He has the personal letter of the Iron Blood Corps' commandant in his hands, as well as the letter of alliance that the late Emperor of Chu and Imperial Father made back then. Although Yihan has yet to respond, in reality, Yihan cannot refuse. Otherwise, it would be a violation of the letter of alliance, and the other 5 countries would be able to punish Great Qi. Feng Yihan didn't hide anything. In reality, the reason he had stopped Yao Moen was to inform her of this matter. An alliance letter from the late emperor? Yao Moen turned to look towards Yi Junqing. She suddenly felt a headache coming on. It was the commandant of the Iron Blood Corps again. He was practically haunting her. That seems to be the case. It's just that Junqing was still young at the time, so he doesn't remember it clearly. Yi Junqing also felt that this matter was very troublesome. May I ask King Qi, which countries are the countries on the letter of alliance? Yao Moen understood Feng Yihan's meaning and asked seriously. Great Qi, Great Chu, Great Zhou, Great Shu, as well as Lulan and Nanxiang. When Feng Yihan finished speaking, Yao Moen wanted to cry. If there really was such a letter of alliance, then Yi Junqing definitely had no hope of winning. She never expected that the commandant of the Iron Blood Corps would have such a sinister move. Even Lulan and Nanxiang are among them? Yi Junqing frowned. How could he not understand the severity of the situation? To tell you the truth, Yihan found out from the left emissary that his next stop is Lulan and Nanxiang, while the right emissary has already gone to Great Shu and Great Zhou, said Feng Yihan solemnly. It's too late. We have to stop them before they reach those countries, or convince the other countries. Yi Junqing's expression was grave. Even Yihan doesn't dare to refuse. Does Prince think that the other countries will take the risk? As for stopping the left emissary, even if we kill them, the Iron Blood Corps can still send more commandants. Will Prince be able to kill them all? Feng Yihan didn't think much of it. Then what do we do now? This was the first time Yao Moen felt panic. She was the one who had started this battle. If Yi Junqing lost his life because of this, then what would be the point of her rebirth? When Feng Yihan saw that Yi Junqing and Yao Moen's expressions were conflicted, he suddenly lifted his brows and continued. Yihan carefully read through the letter of alliance. It's written very clearly that if you wish to ask for assistance, you have to obtain the agreement of 3 or more countries for it to be effective. Furthermore, the countries involved don't count. So although Yihan didn't refuse, he didn't agree either. Yao Moen was instantly enlightened by Feng Yihan's words, but in her heart, she was fiercely questioning Feng Yihan. Do you want to fucking string these words together? On the side, Yi Junqing still hadn't relaxed. Besides Great Shu, there were also Great Qi, Great Zhou, Great Shu, Lulan, and Nanxiang. If 3 of the 5 countries refused, then the letter of alliance would be ineffective. However, in his opinion, this wasn't going to be easy. King Qi means that as long as Moen can convince 2 countries to refuse, King Qi will refuse? Yao Moen was still grateful to Feng Yihan. At the very least, he'd given her hope. Otherwise, if Yi Hongyi really did form an alliance with the 5 countries, then no matter how powerful she was, she wouldn't be able to stop the armies of the 5 countries. Yihan has repaid what I owe you. Feng Yihan's brows relaxed slightly as his eyes sparkled. Moen knows very well how important this matter is. It's not something that Feng Duo's life can compare to. No matter what, if this succeeds, Moen will owe King Qi a favor. Yao Moen wasn't being generous, she was being fair. Furthermore, when faced with Feng Yihan's help, she should show some sincerity. Yihan will remember this favor. Feng Yihan nodded happily with a smile on his face. At the side, Yi Junqing was extremely gloomy. Was he here? Couldn't they see him? Time is of the essence. We should hurry back to Ji Province and then head to Great Shu, said Yi Junqing stubbornly. Great Shu? Prince wants to convince Great Shu? Yao Moen turned to look towards Yi Junqing. Compared to Great Zhou and Nanxiang, this prince feels that it'll be much easier to convince Great Shu and Lulan, said Yi Junqing. Prince truly doesn't understand Chu Ma Bei. Back then, when we won 3 battles in a row and our morale was high, he still wanted to get some benefits. If Chu Ma Bei finds out about our current predicament, do you think he'll help us in our hour of need? Or hit us while we're down? After a few exchanges, although Yao Moen hadn't lost to Chu Ma Bei, she hadn't gained any advantage either. Thus, she still felt some lingering fear towards Chu Ma Bei. Then what do you mean? Yi Junqing thought back to the past and felt that it was reasonable. Lulan and Nanxiang. Yao Moen's voice sank slightly as she made up her mind. Lulan and Nanxiang are possible, but Nanxiang doesn't have much of a relationship with us. Do you think he'll agree? Yi Junqing was deeply worried. Chapter 387. How could Prince have forgotten? When Moen had pretended to be sick and wanted to go to Wasteland, in order to prevent Yi Hongyi from going with her, she had specially written a letter to Lord Nanxiang. Speaking of which, we do have some history, reminded Yao Moen. Yi Junqing suddenly understood. If it wasn't for the fact that Nanxiang had attacked Great Chu, Yi Hongyi wouldn't have allowed him to go with Yao Moen. Moen, this escape plan of yours truly works. Feng Yihan couldn't help but sigh. It seemed that he wasn't the only one who had suffered from Yao Moen's schemes. King Qi praises me too much. Yao Moen smiled sweetly. Feng Yihan couldn't get tired of looking at that smile. There's no time to lose. Should we head to Lulan tomorrow? Yi Junqing felt like he was about to suffocate when he saw Feng Yihan continuously throwing flirtatious glances at Yao Moen. The situation is urgent right now, so Yihan can't keep you two any longer. However, after this matter is over, Moen must promise us that you will definitely come to Great Qi to stay for a few days so Yihan can show some hospitality. Feng Yihan truly couldn't bear to see Yao Moen leave. Does this count as returning King Qi's favor? Yao Moen's words caused Feng Yihan's forehead to break out in cold sweat. Moen is joking. Moen will definitely return this favor so that King Qi will feel that it was worth it. Yao Moen's tone was firm. After Feng Yihan left, Yi Junqing wanted to say something but didn't in the end. He felt that this favor shouldn't be returned by Yao Moen. The next day, Yao Moen and Yi Junqing left Great Qi. However, they didn't head straight for Lulan. Instead, they headed for Nanxiang. Also, Feng Yihan had promised to keep the iron-blooded army's left emissary for a few more days to buy time for Yao Moen and the others. Before leaving, Feng Yihan had especially ordered Ting Feng to prepare a top-quality, thousandly colt. At this moment, the wheels were moving like the wind. This prince doesn't understand. Why didn't we go to Lulan first? Why did we take a detour to Nanxiang? When Yao Moen had suggested this, Yi Junqing hadn't refused. Perhaps he had already lost the ability to refuse Yao Moen. However, he had to ask if he didn't understand. Based on King Lolan's relationship with us, he might not agree to the left emissary's request so quickly. However, Lord Nan is different, so our most important task right now is to obtain Lord Nan Duan Shiming's support. Yao Moen knew that this trip would decide success or failure, so she was willing to do it no matter what price she had to pay. Yao Moen knew that this trip would determine success, so she was willing to help. No matter what, she had to do it. It took about half a month to travel from Daki to Nanxiang. During this half a month, Yao Moen kept receiving secret letters from Ji Province. Most of them were reports of their safety, but there were also a few head-scratching matters. For example, Yin Nanxing really had sent Qing'er back to Myriad Imperial City, but Han Jini had kept him outside for 3 days and 3 nights until Qing'er had fainted from kneeling. Yin Nanxing had no choice but to bring Qing'er back to Ji Province. Now Qing'er was unwilling to let him go and had been crying all day. Yin Nanxing had begged for mercy, but had intentionally attached a note that he had personally written. Yi Junqing, hurry up and come back. As for Guangning's Chao Kuan, there was still no news. That thousand-faced assassin also hadn't come out to stir up any trouble after being injured by Zhu Qin's arrow-explosive rat. Huan Kaier had returned to Ji Province crying and saying that Huang Fu Juanxia wanted to take a concubine. When Huan Heng heard this, he naturally wasn't willing to accept it and kept asking Yi Junqing to stand up for him. However, in Yao Moen's eyes, these were all trivial matters. She didn't need to take them to heart. 10 odd days passed by in the blink of an eye. Yao Moen and the others finally arrived at Nanxiang Nation's capital, Holy City. When she entered Holy City again, things remained the same, but the people had changed. The scene from back then reappeared. When Yi Hongyi had first ascended the dragon throne, he had brought her along as a diplomatic envoy to Nanxiang. She had obtained the soul sand tree from Nanxiang's ruler, Duan Shiming's younger sister, Princess Hanyue, Duan Zitong. It was said that Nanxiang's Hanyue princess, Duan Zidong, was Duan Shiming's only younger sister, so he naturally doted on her in every possible way. However, at that time, Duan Shiming had just ascended to the throne and his foundation wasn't stable. Nanxiang's court was controlled by great General Zhou Long, but this Zhou Long's son just happened to take a fancy to Duan Zitong. No matter what, he wanted to marry her, but Duan Zidong refused even to the death. It was at this critical juncture that Yao Maxin found out about this matter. Without discussing it with anyone, she privately ordered her subordinates in Mongyuan to hire assassins to kill Zhou Long's son. Even Yi Hongyi didn't know about this. After this incident, Yao Maxin and Duan Zidong became good friends. To be more precise, Duan Zidong talked about everything and Yao Maxin only listened. "What are you thinking about?" asked Yi Junqing when he saw that Yao Moen was lost in her thoughts. It's nothing. I wonder if Duan Shiming has received Moen's letter?" Yao Moen deliberately suppressed the unclear emotions in her eyes as she casually lifted the curtain. At this time, the carriage was traveling on the most flourishing street of Sacred City. The rows of shops lined the sides of the street in an orderly fashion. Loud shouts of customers rang out incessantly. What Yao Moen heard the most were the merchants praising their goo bugs for being fat, big, super cute, super small, super exquisite. Nyang nyang, those bugs are so disgusting. When Tingyu saw those fleshy, hairy, and colorful bugs in the cages, she felt goosebumps all over her body. Sure, you can't say such things carelessly. Most of Nanxiang's finances come from these goo bugs. In Nanxiang, the ones you can't afford to offend the most are these bugs. Yao Moen could understand Tingyu's reaction very well. When she first saw these bugs, she also hadn't eaten for 2 days. Right at this time, In Shui suddenly appeared and ordered the carriage driver to stop. "Master, there's someone blocking the carriage up ahead. It should be Duan Shiming who sent them." In Shui's words caused Yao Moen and Yi Junqing to exchange a glance before getting out of the carriage. As expected, the moment Yao Moen got out of the carriage, a eunuch dressed in green palace robes ran over. This servant Wu Zijing kowtows in salute to the Empress of Chu and the esteemed prince. His Majesty knows of your arrival and has already prepared a welcoming banquet in the palace. This way, please. The eunuch who spoke wasn't very old, but he had a slick expression and behaved in a proper manner, making him seem rather mature. Thus, Yao Moen and Yi Junqing sat on the purple silk lawn sedan that Wu Zijing had already prepared and headed towards Nanxiang's imperial palace. Tingyu and In Shui followed closely behind. In order to avoid any unnecessary misunderstandings, Yao Moen specifically told In Shui not to hide herself and to act like Tingyu and to act like a follower. Nanxiang's imperial gardens were truly different from the masses. On each of the delicate and beautiful flowers were countless fleshy bugs. They were of all shapes and sizes. Some were long and some were short. Some were red and some were green. It was truly a spectacular sight. After Yao Moen and Yi Junqing took their seats, the ruler of Nanxiang, Duan Shiming, his younger sister Duan Zidong, and the daughter he was most proud of, Duan Tingting, stepped into the imperial gardens. "I've long heard that Great Chu's esteemed prince is skilled in both literature and martial arts. Seeing you today, you truly live up to your reputation." A bright and clear voice rang out as Duan Shiming walked towards Yi Junqing. When he clenched his fists, Yi Junqing returned the greeting. At the side, Yao Moen carefully examined Duan Shiming. It had been several years since they last met, but Duan Shiming didn't seem to have changed much. His figure was tall and his skin was bronze. Although his facial features couldn't be considered handsome, they had a unique characteristic of arrogance and unruliness. His high-nosed bones made his entire face look like a statue. "Nanxiang's ruler flatters me," replied Yi Junqing respectfully. Duan Shiming nodded slightly before walking to Yao Moen. His deep eyes flickered with an indescribable light. "This must be the Empress of Chu, Yao Moen?" Just from those clear and lively eyes alone, it was clear that the woman in front of him was definitely not the foolish empress everyone thought she was. At the time, Nanxiang's ruler sent troops to relieve Moen of the siege. Moen originally wanted to thank you in person, but unfortunately, there wasn't a chance. Now that we've met, please accept a bow from Moen. Yao Moen's cherry lips curved. Just as she was about to bow, Duan Shiming stopped her. "Empress of Chu, there's no need to do this. We are only doing this to return a favor to the former Empress of Chu, Yao Maxin," said Duan Shiming bluntly. After Duan Shiming sat down, Duan Zidong, who had followed behind him, stood in front of Yao Moen with a meaningful expression. Chapter 388. Since Empress Chu knows about what happened back then you should have heard of this consort's name from older sister Maxin. Duan Zidong looked at Yao Moen with interest. Her appearance was somewhat similar to Yao Maxin's. Eldest sister often praised Princess Han for being intelligent, far-sighted, and considerate. Yao Moen was very excited to see Duan Zidong again in a foreign land. In terms of wisdom, there's probably no one in this world that can compare to older sister Maxin. Empress Chu, please sit. Duan Zidong's voice was slightly sorrowful, and the regret in her eyes moved Yao Moen for some reason. Thousands of li away, there was actually someone mourning her death. It's rare for Tingting to be able to meet the esteemed prince of Great Chu, who is known as the legend of the battlefield. Tingting is extremely honored. Her lively voice was like the spring rain, spreading into one's heart and causing ripples. Yao Moen looked over, and her heart sank. What a beautiful woman. Even Yao Moen, who had seen countless people, was stunned. She saw that the woman was dressed in snow white and wore a complicated lace dress. The wind blew, and the woman seemed like a fairy that had arrived on clouds. She stood elegantly on the clouds and was breathtakingly beautiful. Her long, ink-black hair fell gracefully to her shoulders and cascaded down like a waterfall. Under the sunlight, her ink-black hair glowed with a lustrous luster that could move one's soul. Her curly eyelashes fluttered lightly, like wings that were soft and picturesque. Her watery black eyes were like fire as she stared at Yi Junqing, unable to conceal the respect and admiration in them. You flatter me. Yi Junqing only knew that the woman in front of him was beautiful. This kind of beauty was rarely seen. Esteemed prince, please don't blame me. Tingting is our only daughter, and we usually pamper her. When she heard that the esteemed prince had arrived today, she clamored to come to the banquet. Tingting, hurry and return to your seat. When he looked towards Duan Tingting, Duan Shiming's eyes were filled with tenderness. Yao Moen saw all of this and her heart sank. The banquet could be considered grand and even luxurious, but Yao Moen and the others really couldn't bear it. At this moment, as Yao Moen looked at the insects that had been fried to a crisp on the jade plate, she felt her stomach churn. Especially when she saw the goo insects on the surrounding plants and flowers, the food on the plate became even harder to swallow. It wasn't just Yao Moen, even Yi Junqing felt the same way. So after the entire banquet, not only did Yao Moen and Yi Junqing not feel full, they felt even more hungry. After the banquet ended, Wu Zijing settled the two of them down according to the Southern Strong King's orders. Tingyu was sent to take care of Yi Junqing. That night, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. Yao Moen was leaning against the window. The wind blew, and the air gradually became chilly. Master, someone's coming. Inshue subconsciously moved closer to Yao Moen in case someone ambushed her. When she turned around, she saw that Duan Zidong had already walked in. Zidong is presumptuous to disturb. I wonder if Empress Chu welcomes me? Duan Zidong was dressed in a light purple robe that was 3 feet long. Under the moonlight, it shone with a faint cold light. Of course you're welcome. Inshue, serve tea. Duan Zidong could also be called a beauty that could topple a city. Her eyebrows were like an ink painting, her eyes were like stars, her skin was fair and flawless, and her figure was graceful and graceful. She was once the #1 beauty in Nanxiang. However, a beauty was past her prime. Although she couldn't be considered past her prime, in comparison, Duan Tingting's soaring youthfulness was the real killer. There's no need. Zidong wishes to speak with Empress Chu alone. Duan Zitong's expression was extremely solemn, and her eyes were cold, but harmless. Inshue, withdraw first. When Yao Moen sensed the cold intent coming from Duan Zidong, she narrowed her eyes and looked towards Inshue. Inshue didn't dare tarry and was about to leave when Duan Zidong stopped her. This consort knows that your martial arts aren't weak. Don't worry, this consort only wishes to chat with Empress Chu. This consort definitely won't harm her in the slightest. Although Duan Zitong was looking at Inshue, she was actually saying this for Yao Moen to hear. When Inshue heard this, she reflexively looked towards Yao Moen. Only when Yao Moen nodded did she truly withdraw. Princess, please sit. After Inshue left, Yao Moen poured a cup of tea and pushed it towards Duan Zidong. Who exactly are you? Duan Zitong's question was so irrelevant that Yao Moen didn't know how to reply. Moen doesn't understand princess's meaning, said Yao Moen with a smile. Older sister Ma Xin. Duan Zidong's eyes were filled with sorrow and tears. Yao Moen was slightly shaken when she heard this, then she smiled bitterly. Yao Ma Xin was already dead, so what was she thinking? Eldest sister would definitely be gratified in the underworld to have Princess miss you so much. Yao Moen's smile reached her heart. Although Zidong doesn't know why older sister Ma Xin changed into this appearance, Zidong knows that you're Yao Ma Xin. You definitely are. Duan Zidong vowed solemnly, and her voice was abnormally firm. Her eyes seemed to be able to see through Yao Moen's body and into her bones. What kind of joke is this? Even though Yao Moen had experienced it herself, she would often look at herself in the mirror when she woke up in the middle of the night. Only then was she sure that reincarnating in someone else's body really existed in this world. She couldn't imagine where Duan Zidong's confidence came from. Zidong isn't joking. I presume that older sister Ma Xin still remembers eating the pastries that Zidong personally made for older sister back in Nanxiang. It was only once, and that time, Zidong planted a heart goo in older sister's body. Duan Zidong's tears fell soundlessly and her voice trembled slightly. Heart goo? Yao Moen was a bit confused. That's right. The so-called heart goo requires the person who planted the goo and the goo to agree to live together. If you're not Yao Ma Xin, then how do you explain this goo? Duan Zidong walked towards Yao Moen step by step. Then she stretched out her left hand and opened it. She saw a green, furry, winged bug lying on Duan Zidong's palm, sleeping. Cough cough. This bug is related to Moen? Yao Moen found this inconceivable. Of course, it followed older sister Ma Xin for 6 years. In these 6 years, although it maintained a distance from older sister Ma Xin, it never exceeded 3 feet. Duan Zidong's words were like pearls, her eyes deep and serene, without the slightest hint of ridicule. Are you sure you didn't randomly grab this thing from the outside? Yao Moen still found it inconceivable. Of course not. Even if it had stayed in Nanxiang all this time, how could it have become this haggard? It seems like it hasn't enjoyed any good fortune with older sister. Duan Zidong looked towards the heart goo in her hand with some sympathy. Actually, Moen feels that Princess is overthinking things. If Moen really is older sister, then how do you explain Moen's current appearance? Yao Moen felt that even if what Duan Zidong said was true, she couldn't admit it no matter what. The moment she opened her mouth about this matter, the consequences would be unimaginable. But what made Yao Moen depressed was that she had never imagined that there would be such a goo hidden by her side. It was so ugly that it couldn't be looked at. Disguise, disguise. Anything is possible. Duan Zidong disapproved. Although Moen doesn't know why Princess would have such a bizarre idea, Moen is still willing to prove everything to Princess. Princess can try and see if Moen's face can be peeled off. Yao Moen very cooperatively walked to Duan Zidong's side and stretched out her face. Softer, softer. It hurts so much. Yao Moen hadn't expected that Duan Zidong would really be so ruthless. Her face started to heat up. In any case, whether you admit it or not, it won't change the fact that you're Yao Ma Xin. Duan Zidong pinched for a long time but didn't find any flaws, so she just gave up. However, she firmly believed that Yao Moen was Yao Ma Xin. If Princess feels that treating Moen as older sister will make Princess feel better, then Moen doesn't mind. Yao Moen was a bit helpless. Chapter 389. Forget it. If it wasn't for the difficulties, Zidong believes that sister wouldn't deny it. Sister, don't worry, Zidong won't tell anyone about this. Duan Zidong took a deep breath and threw the heart with hearts goo out the window. Yao Mo Wan smiled but didn't say anything and handed the teacup to Duan Zidong. Don't know why sister came to Nanchang this time? If Zidong can help, I definitely won't refuse. Duan Zidong didn't argue about Yao Mo Wan's identity anymore and spoke sincerely. To be honest, Moen came to Nanchang this time to ask for the support of Nanchang Lord. Now that Dechu is an internal strife, Yi Junqing raised the flag and changed sides, opposing Yi Hongyi as an equal. Unexpectedly, Yi Hongyi actually took out the letter of alliance signed by the late emperor with the 5 countries, wanting to combine the power of the 5 countries to kill Yi Junqing. However, the letter of alliance clearly states that as long as 3 of the 5 countries refuse, the letter of alliance will lose its binding force. Moen and esteemed prince came because we want Nanchang Lord to be magnanimous and not interfere into choose civil war. Since Duan Zidong didn't argue about her identity and was willing to help her, Yao Mo naturally expressed her intentions. Regardless of what happened between Yi Junqing and Yi Hongyi, since sister came this time to plead for leniency for Yi Junqing, presumably your thoughts are already on Yi Junqing. Back then, sister was wholeheartedly devoted to Yi Hongyi. Duan Zidong looked towards Yao Mo suspiciously. That's why Moen isn't big sister. When the past was mentioned, Yao Mo no longer felt the piercing pain, but her heart was still bitter and uncomfortable. Regarding this point, sister doesn't need to explain. Zidong understands. How about this? Zidong will speak up for Yi Junqing in front of brother, but this is a national matter. Zidong can't say too much. Duan Zidong restrained the conflict in her eyes and said solemnly, "If it's really like this, Moen will be endlessly grateful." Yao Mo smiled again, her eyes bright. Zidong heard sister died of dystocia and privately felt it was very strange. If Yi Hongyi didn't do something worse than a beast, sister wouldn't be so disheartened. Zidong doesn't want to say too much, but this time sister didn't make a mistake. It's late. Sister should rest first. Zitong will come see you tomorrow. Duan Zitong's words, Duan Zitong's eyes. Yao Mo only smiled slightly and didn't explain further. Sometimes, explaining too much would instead be a burden. Only after Duan Zidong left did Yao Mo let out a sigh of relief. She never would have thought that Duan Zidong would actually be able to guess her identity. She really was godly. Just as Yao Mo was sighing, she suddenly saw that hairy, ugly bug in the corner, and that bug seemed to be staring at her. For a moment, Yao Mo suddenly had the urge to rush up and trample it to death, but in the end, she gave up on this idea. The so-called One Heart, presumably it had also suffered a lot with her. In the Imperial Dragon Palace in the middle of the night, Duan Shiming's eyes widened, and he looked at his daughter in amazement. "What did you say? You put the winged goo into Yi Junqing's body? Ting, you've only met him once." Duan Shiming's voice deepened as he glared at Duan Ting. Just by looking at him, Ting is sure that he is the person that Ting wants to find in this life. Duan Ting firmly believed in her feelings. Nonsense. Not to mention you, even Imperial Father doesn't know much about him. You've been too careless in this matter. Also, how can you be sure that Yi Junqing doesn't have another woman in his heart? Duan Shiming reprimanded angrily. Imperial Father should know the power of the winged goo. Even if he has another woman in his heart, from now on, he will slowly forget all his feelings for that woman. Perhaps it was because the meal hadn't been eaten, but at dinner the next day, the meal on the table had undergone a qualitative change. Although the culinary skills weren't satisfactory, at least it was a normal meal. Thus, Yi Junqing and Yao Mo were finally able to eat their fill on the second day after coming to Nanchang. After the palace maids brought the meal away, Duan Ting unexpectedly appeared in front of Yao Mo and Yi Junqing. Ting greets Empress Chu, greets esteemed prince. Her clear voice was as beautiful as always, like the sound of rain falling on porcelain, pleasing to the ear. At this moment, Duan Ting was ordering the maid behind her to place a bowl of ginseng soup on the table. Ting knows that the two of you aren't used to Nanchang's food, so Ting specially ordered the kitchen to imitate the food of the Central Plains to prepare dinner. This bowl of ginseng soup is a small token of Ting's sincerity. I hope that Prince and Empress Chu will accept it. As Duan Ting spoke, she personally scooped a bowl for Yi Junqing and Yao Mo. Princess is of noble birth. It's better for this servant to do this kind of thing. At the side, Ting respectfully walked up and took the bowl from Duan Ting's hands. Just as she was about to present it to Yi Junqing, Duan Ting stopped her. "Empress Chu, please try this ginseng soup. Is it to your liking?" Once Duan Ting said this, Ting could only change her direction and present the ginseng soup to Yao Mo. At the same time, Duan Ting scooped another bowl and personally walked to Yi Junqing. Chapter 390. Prince should taste it as well. Is there anything lacking in Tingting's ginseng soup? Duan Tingting lowered her eyes slightly. Her clear eyes seemed to contain 1,000 different colors of light as they landed on Yi Juanqing's handsome face. At such a close distance, Duan Tingting could even smell the light fragrance coming from Yi Juanqing's body because of the Bodhi jade. She knew that this was the man she was looking for, a man that was 1 in 10,000. Princess is being too polite. Juanqing can do it himself. Yi Juanqing smiled lightly and reached out to take the bowl. Duan Tingting brushed against Yi Juanqing's arm in a seemingly unintentional manner, trying to probe his intentions. However, to her surprise, Yi Juanqing immediately got up and took a few steps back. His expression turned slightly red as he glanced towards her. Duan Tingting narrowed her eyes and followed Yi Juanqing's gaze. She saw that Yao Moen was so focused on drinking the soup that she didn't notice what was going on at all. Ahem. Juanqing has eaten too much, so this soup should be left for later. However, Juanqing thanks Princess for your good intentions. Yi Juanqing's tone was modest as he placed the bowl of ginseng soup on the table. Since that's the case, Tingting won't disturb Prince and Empress Chu's rest. Tingting will withdraw first. Duan Tingting's smile remained, but it seemed especially stiff. Yi Juanqing only sighed in relief after Duan Tingting left. Prince has probably hurt Princess's heart. The second after Duan Tingting left, Yao Moen slowly put down the bowl and said this seemingly unintentionally. Yao Moen, you can't think like that. This prince is innocent. You saw it just now as well. This prince managed to get away in time. It's true. This prince's heart is as pure as water. You can't think the wrong way. Yao Moen's words caused Yi Juanqing to blabber endlessly. Even Ting Yu and Yin Shui felt that Yi Juanqing's explanation was too complicated. Moen isn't thinking the wrong way, but, Ting Yu, stay here and take care of Prince. Yin Shui, come back with this consort. Yao Moen hesitated, then got up and walked out dejectedly. Don't go. But what? Hey. Yi Juanqing suddenly got up. He really wanted to chase after her, but he restrained himself. Prince, do you still want to drink this ginseng soup? Ting Yu interrupted at an untimely time. You didn't drink it, yet you still made your master unhappy. Pour it out. Yi Juanqing let out a long sigh. He was annoyed with himself. Some words were clearly at the tip of his tongue, but why couldn't he say them? Nyang Nyang isn't unhappy, it's just that. Ting Yu held the porcelain bowl and hesitated for a moment before turning to leave. There were some words that it was really hard for her, a servant, to say. But what? Don't go. Ting Yu, you've learned bad things from your master. When Yi Juanqing saw that Ting Yu was shaking her head and leaving, he became gloomy. Was he supposed to drink that ginseng soup? When she returned to her room, Yao Moen's mood was still extremely gloomy. When she saw her master picking up the silver rod and randomly picking up the candle wick, Yin Shui finally spoke up. If Lord Nin wants to marry off his daughter, what does master plan to do? Up to now, everyone knew of Yao Moen's feelings towards Yi Juanqing. So no matter if it was Yin Shui, Ting Yu, or anyone else who knew all of this, they all hoped that the lovers would end up together. Very good. If Duan Shiming is willing to marry his daughter to Yi Juanqing, he will naturally agree to our request. Then all of the problems will be easily solved. Yao Moen felt that this was a delightful matter. She should be happy, but she truly couldn't bring herself to smile. Master, perhaps we still have another way. Yin Shui looked towards Yao Moen with heartache. Perhaps, but Bin Gong really didn't think of it. Yao Moen sighed deeply, then got up and walked towards the bed. Perhaps she should reflect on herself. From beginning to end, her goal was to return Yi Juanqing's lovely land. She should support all the people and things that could be used to facilitate this matter. But Yao Moen fiercely closed her eyes. There were no buts. Inside Imperial Dragon Palace, Duan Tingting's eyes were deep and serene. Her ice-cold eyes suffused with a dense coldness. Your winged parasite still hasn't shown its effect? How is that possible? Duan Shiming looked towards his daughter suspiciously, his eyes full of doubt. That's the truth. Tonight, Tingting went to deliver a bowl of ginseng soup to Yi Juanqing. Daughter had only touched him slightly, and he jumped up and retreated several steps as if he'd seen a ghost. This isn't the reaction that Yi Junqing should have. Duan Tingting's eyes deepened, her voice faintly revealing her unwillingness. It seems that Yi Junqing really does have another woman in his heart. That's why the effect of the winged parasite is abnormally slow, explained Duan Shiming. Perhaps daughter already knows who the woman in Yi Junqing's heart is, but she's Yi Hongyi's empress. How could Yi Junqing like her? This is a mess of ethics. What Duan Tingting was naturally referring to was Yao Moen. At the time, she had clearly seen that Yi Junqing's gaze towards Yao Moen was filled with apprehension and worry. He cared about Yao Moen's attitude. It's no wonder. Even though Imperial Father is far away in Nanxiang, you've still heard about the matter between Yi Junqing and Great Chu's former empress, Yao Maxin. Everyone knows that Yi Junqing had feelings for Wan Maxin, that he had even given up the throne for her and was willing to submit to Yi Hongyi. However, Wan Maxin didn't have any feelings for him and instead did everything for Yi Hongyi. Now that Yao Maxin has passed away, it's only natural that Yi Junqing would like Yao Maxin's younger sister because of her, explained Duan Shiming. So it's like that. Duan Tingting's eyes darkened as she fell into thought. Also, you've also seen that Yao Moen is currently traveling with Yi Junqing. It's clear that her heart is already on Yi Junqing. So, daughter, it's better if you give up, advised Duan Shiming earnestly. Impossible. Imperial Father, you should know the power of the winged parasite. If he isn't suitable for this daughter, then this daughter wouldn't be able to plant the winged parasite in his body. Imperial Father, this daughter won't give up. Also, this daughter believes that before long, Yi Junqing will definitely fall in love with this daughter. Duan Tingting vowed. But based on the current speed, Yi Junqing might not necessarily be affected by the winged parasite even if it's another 10 days. Duan Shiming really couldn't keep Yao Moen and Yi Junqing in Nanxiang for that long. So this daughter has come to find Imperial Father to ask Imperial Father for one thing. Chapter 391. Empress Chu's thoughts are meticulous. Regarding the matter of the letter of alliance, Zhen wants to know, if Zhen agrees to reject Yi Hongyi, how confident is Empress Chu in convincing the other two nations? Duan Shiming's eyes were solemn, his voice calm and restrained. If strong Lord Nan is willing to agree to Moen's request, then this matter will be settled. Yao Moen's lips curved into a smile. Queen Chu is truly resolute. Since that's the case, we are willing to give Queen Chu face. However, we still have a condition. Yao Moen's heart sank slightly, but her expression was as calm as still water. After leaving the imperial study, Yao Moen's calm expression finally relaxed slightly. She looked up at the clear blue sky and saw that the sun was shining brightly. However, her heart was clouded. When Yao Moen had Shui tell Tingyu to help Yi Junqing pack his luggage, he immediately went to find her. We're leaving? But strong Lord Nan still hasn't said anything? Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Moen. She was currently as calm as a virgin as she stared motionlessly at the sandalwood incense burner. Yao Moen, are you all right? Seeing that Yao Moen's expression was strange, Yi Junqing walked up worriedly and frowned. Yao Moen still didn't look away. Moen? Strong Lord Nan doesn't agree? Did he make things difficult for you? Forget it, we won't beg him. Even if the 6 countries join forces, this prince might not lose. Just wait, this prince will prepare the carriage right now. We're leaving. Yi Junqing thought that Duan Shiming must have said something bad to Yao Moen to make her so dispirited. He got angry and turned to leave. Moen doesn't want to gamble on the word might not. What should I do? Yao Moen muttered to herself after Yi Junqing left. Her face was burning hot and her fingers were icy cold. Duan Zidong was surprised by Yao Moen's sudden departure, but when she found out that Imperial Brother had agreed to Yao Moen's request, she calmed down. If it wasn't for the fact that Elder Sister had important matters to attend to, Zidong would definitely keep Elder Sister for a few more days. Duan Zidong was currently holding Yao Moen's hand with tears in her eyes. Thank you. Even though Duan Zidong hadn't been of much use in this matter, Yao Moen still felt that it was necessary to say a word of thanks. How many people in this world still cared about Yao Maxin? Sister, you're exaggerating. Zedong didn't actually do anything. Duan Zedong's eyes were filled with guilt. It's getting late. Moen bids farewell to Princess Hanyue. Yao Moen solemnly bowed, then entered the carriage with Ting Yu's help. Duan Zedong couldn't help but sigh as she watched the carriage disappear from her sight. Just as she turned around, she saw Duan Shiming standing behind her with a sorrowful expression. What took you so long, big brother? Where's Ting Ting? Doesn't she plan on sending Yi Junqing off? In reality, Duan Zedong had already sensed that Duan Tingting had a good impression of Yi Junqing since the night of the banquet. Imperial Brother was afraid that it would be too sad, so he hid in the back and didn't come out. It's just that Tingting has never left Nanxiang since she was young. Imperial Brother is really worried about this long journey. Duan Zedong's pitch-black eyes shone with a luster. Duan Zedong was slightly shocked when he heard this, but he suddenly understood. Imperial Brother is saying that Tingting left with Yao Moen? In that carriage? Why? Duan Zedong furrowed her brows as a trace of unease welled up in her heart. That silly child Tingting actually took a fancy to Yi Junqing. She even planted a pair of wings parasites in Yi Junqing's body. In this lifetime, if she doesn't marry Yi Junqing, she probably won't give up. Duan Shiming's voice was a bit helpless. No matter how much he doted on his daughter, she would still have to marry someone when she grew up. Pair of wings parasites? Why didn't Imperial Brother stop her? You should be able to tell that Yi Junqing likes someone else. Duan Zedong panicked and asked anxiously. We also wanted to stop her, but don't you know your niece's temper? Forget it. Even if Yi Junqing likes Yao Moen right now, in a few days, he'll only have Tingting in his heart. We only hope. AI, we'll head back first. Duan Shiming's gaze was dark. He believed that Yao Moen wouldn't go back on her word. Once Duan Shiming left, Duan Zedong remained in place with complicated emotions. She never expected that Duan Tingting would actually plant a parasite in Yi Junqing. However, she could tell that Yao Moen truly liked Yi Junqing. What should she do? Perhaps she should do something, Duan Zedong thought. With Duan Shiming's token, the carriage was able to travel unimpeded and very quickly left Holy City. However, the atmosphere inside the carriage was extremely strange. Yao Moen and Duan Tingting would occasionally chat with each other, but Yi Junqing hadn't said a single word since he got into the carriage. However, he was questioning Yao Moen several hundred times in his heart. Why was Duan Tingting in the carriage? Why? This time, Lord Nanxiang was able to agree to Prince's request thanks to Princess Chongfeng's advice. Moen thanks Princess. Yao Moen felt that she had to explain. Otherwise, she was really afraid that Yi Junqing would explode. Empress Chu is too polite. You can just call me Tingting. Tingting grew up in Nanxiang. Now that I'm leaving Nanxiang, there are many places that Empress Chu and Prince will need to take care of. Tingting, on the other hand, has troubled the two of you. If I've been inconsiderate, please forgive me. Duan Tingting's cherry lips curved into a sweet smile. As Yao Moen looked at Duan Tingting, who was as beautiful as a fairy, she felt that she and Yi Junqing were truly a match made in heaven. All right, she was going against her will. May I ask where Princess is going? This prince and Moen can send Princess off first before heading to Lulan, said Yi Junqing. Imperial Father only said that Tingting should follow Prince, so wherever Prince goes, Tingting will go. Prince wouldn't dislike Tingting, right? Duan Tingting could sense Yi Junqing's coldness, but she believed that this was all temporary. Ahem. No, replied Yi Junqing awkwardly. His eyes flickered. All right, he was going against his will. At the side, Tingyu glanced at her master from time to time. She suddenly felt wronged for her master. They'd finally sent off Huan Kaier with great difficulty, but now Duan Tingting had come. How could her master's fate be so full of misfortune? Right at this time, the carriage suddenly stopped. Before Yao Moen could say anything, Yin Shui had already lifted the curtain. Master, there's someone blocking the way. It seems to be the carriage of the strong southern imperial family. Yin Shui's words caused Yao Moen's brows to lift slightly, then she turned to look towards Duan Tingting. It couldn't be Imperial Father, right? Tingting will be back soon. Yin Shui's words caused everyone to naturally think that the carriage was coming for Duan Tingting. Thus, After Duan Tingting jumped off the carriage, Yi Junqing spoke as quickly as he could. Yao Moen, this prince doesn't want to bring her along. Can you think of a way to send her back? Yi Junqing looked towards Yao Moen with a pleading gaze. Prince, don't be so heartless. That young miss is only doing this for Prince's sake. What's more, the ruler of the strong southern imperial family has done us such a great favor, so it's not too much if we just have to take Duan Tingting to see the world. Sometimes, a white lie could resolve the conflict. Can you think of a way? For some reason, whenever Yi Junqing looked at this Duan Tingting, he felt an itch in his heart. He didn't like this feeling at all. In fact, he hated it. It's not easy to ask. Yao Moen tactfully refused. Then this prince will return to Ji province first. Based on your relationship with King Lulan, there's nothing else for this prince to do. Yi Junqing was well aware that compared to Yao Moen, it was harder for him to speak in front of King Lulan. That's fine. Prince, take Duan Tingting with you while you're at it. The moment Yao Moen said this, black lines instantly appeared on Yi Junqing's face. Thus, by the time Duan Tingting returned, the atmosphere in the carriage had dropped to freezing point. Chapter 392. So it's Tingting's aunt. Aunt's also here to find Empress Chu. Duan Tingting smiled sweetly and got on the carriage. Yao Moen felt that Duan Zidong wouldn't chase so far for no reason, so she got off the carriage. Duan Zidong was standing nearby. Her dress fluttered in the wind, giving her a unique beauty. Princess Hanyu, do you need something from Moen? Asked Yao Moen as she walked over to Duan Zidong. Zidong wants to give older sister a few words. Sometimes, even if happiness is right in front of you, if you don't reach out, you'll miss it. Don't believe what you see, believe in your heart. As long as you persevere, older sister Ma Xin will obtain happiness. Duan Zidong pulled her sleeves tighter. In the end, she didn't take out the antidote. She and Duan Tingting had agreed that if Yi Junqing didn't fall in love with Duan Tingting before the antidote wore off, then Duan Tingting would give up. Duan Zidong didn't feel that this was bad. If Yi Junqing's willpower wasn't strong, he wouldn't be worthy of Yao Moen's love. Many thanks. Yao Moen knew that Duan Zidong knew something. Otherwise, she wouldn't have said something like this for no reason. However, she knew that the happiness she wanted didn't have to be related to her. After saying goodbye to Duan Zidong, Yao Moen and the others started on the road to Lulan. It would take about 10 days, which wasn't too long. However, Yao Moen noticed that Yi Junqing had changed a bit. For example, right now, Yi Junqing was handing the steamed buns that Ting Yu had bought to Duan Tingting instead of himself. Are you thirsty? Ting Yu, go get some water, ordered Yi Junqing when he saw that Duan Tingting was choking. Where would this servant go to get water in the wilderness? It wasn't just Yao Moen. Even Ting Yu felt that Yi Junqing had changed too quickly. Back then, he had begged Master to send Duan Tingting away. It had only been a few days, but he was already treating her like a mother. No. As Yi Junqing spoke, his eyes subconsciously glanced towards the water bag next to Yao Moen. Prince, don't get any ideas about Her Highness. Everyone has a water pouch that holds the same amount of water. Just because Her Highness drinks slowly doesn't mean that Her Highness isn't thirsty. Ting Yu was extremely angry as she glared at Yi Junqing. This prince didn't say anything? Yi Junqing felt wronged. He had only taken a glance. Was it wrong for him to take a glance? This consort isn't thirsty. Tingting, you drink first. We'll reach town soon, so bear with it for a bit longer. Yao Moen smiled warmly as she handed over her water pouch to Duan Tingting. However, her heart felt like it had been knocked over. She didn't know what to feel. She had promised strong southern prince that she would help Duan Tingting and Yi Junqing. Wasn't everything great now? She didn't even need to waste her breath, and Yi Junqing had already done it himself. But how could she feel bitter in her heart? It felt like swallowing her saliva was extremely bitter. No need. Tingting is not thirsty. Duan Tingting knew that there was no one in this world who could resist the power of the parasite. The fact that Yi Junqing was only showing her a little bit of concern was already a sign of his strong willpower. How can I not be thirsty? Let's take a sip. When Ting Yu saw Yi Junqing take the water pouch from Yao Moen's hands, There was a sudden gust of wind, and the water pouch landed in Yin Shue's hands. This water has been here for a long time. This subordinate will find some new water. Ever since Nanxiang left, Yao Moen didn't restrict Yin Shui from going into hiding. She could do as she pleased. However, she was used to being a hidden guard. Ever since Yin Shui left Nanxiang, unless there was danger, she never showed her face. Now that she came out, she really couldn't stand it anymore. However, right now, she really couldn't keep her composure. Liking someone is like this. Holding them in your hands, you're afraid they're cold. Holding them in your mouth, you're afraid they'll melt. Yao Moen's curly eyelashes fluttered slightly as she sighed lightly. A trace of bitterness appeared on her lips. Liking? Prince really has fallen in love with Duan Tingting. How could this be? Isn't Prince? Humph. Ting, you must have been blind. I originally thought that Prince was loyal and affectionate, but who would have thought that he was also a womanizer? His moral integrity is so low that there's no lower limit. This consort is tired. You should go rest as well. In another 2 days, you'll be able to see Jir. Normally, I don't think about it, but right now, I really do. Yao Moen turned to look towards Tingyu. Tingyu knew that her master wasn't in a good mood. Perhaps she didn't want to listen to her nagging, so she slowly withdrew. Once Tingyu left, Yin Shui floated down. If what you want to say is the same as Tingyu's, then this consort doesn't want to hear it. Yao Moen felt a headache coming on. In reality, she really wasn't that great. When she saw Yi Junqing being infinitely gentle towards Duan Tingting, her heart ached. This subordinate just feels that there's something fishy about this. Yi Junqing has never been close to women, so how could his temperament have changed so much in such a short amount of time? There's definitely something to this. Compared to Tingyu, Yin Shui was still more rational. That's right, it's indeed abnormal, but what does it matter? Yao Moen raised her beautiful eyes slightly with a bitter expression. Master. Chapter 393. This consort personally promised strong Southern King that I would help Yi Junqing and Duan Tingting. It's for the best that they're like this right now. Otherwise, this consort really wouldn't be able to personally help them. Yao Moen tried her best to make her expression look natural, but tears still flowed down her cheeks. Is there really only one way? Yin Shui couldn't bear to see Yao Moen sad. This consort has racked my brains. This is the only way. This time, Yao Moen was at her wit's end. What does Master plan to do in the future? Asked Yin Shui. I can't imagine the future, but we'll talk about it after the present. Don't make things difficult for them tomorrow. Now that things have reached this point, none of us can change anything. Yao Moen's words were a little bitter, and Yin Shui felt her nose tingle. The next day, Yin Shui and Tingyu didn't make things difficult for Yi Junqing and Duan Tingting anymore. However, what the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve. Tingyu just sat outside the carriage while Yin Shui naturally hid in the shadows. Inside the carriage, Yi Junqing would occasionally ask about Duan Tingting's well-being. Yao Moen felt like she had become air. Perhaps in Yi Junqing's eyes, she would no longer be able to find her own shadow, Yao Moen thought. There was a tiny bit of pain in her heart, but it didn't seem like a tiny bit. It was like a drop of ink that had entered a pond and filled the entire pond. The pain in her heart seeped out from every single hair on Yao Moen's body. What Yao Moen didn't expect was that she would actually see Chu Maxin and Lulan. Originally, Chu Maxin didn't want to come, but because King Lulan kept sending letters, Chu Shi had no choice but to send his precious son to stay in Lulan for a few days. Even with the hidden guards protecting him and Huang Fu Juanxiu accompanying him, Chu Shi still couldn't feel at ease. Every day, he would send secret letters to Lulan urging him to hurry back to Great Shu. Older sister Moen, Zhor misses you so much. The moment Kubu Zhair saw Yao Moen, she threw herself at her like a mother and daughter. You're hugging her so tightly that she's about to suffocate. Chu Maxin felt that it was really good to be a woman. She could hug him whenever she wanted, and there was no need to worry about face at all. If the one hugging Yao Moen right now was him, not only would he feel embarrassed, other people would also find it hard to accept. Don't worry, Zhira knows what to do. Big Sister Moen, can you stay for a few more days this time? Zhe and Chu Maxin both miss you. Kubu Zhe blinked innocently as she hugged Yao Moen's arm coquettishly. This prince wasn't thinking of her. Seeing that Kubu Zhe had exposed him, Chu Maxin immediately denied it. That's right. You haven't missed Big Sister Moen. You haven't even nagged her 500 times a day, so it doesn't count as missing. Kubu Zhe looked towards Chu Maxin resentfully. Hey! Chu Maxin's face turned red. How could it be as exaggerated as 500 times? At most, it was 499 times. He had already counted. All right, he's not thinking about Moen. It's just that the clothes are small, right? Yao Moen patted Chu Maxin's head and smiled like a flower. She had been really depressed this entire time. Now that she was smiling, she felt like she hadn't in a long time. If you don't make 50 of them this time, don't even think about leaving. Chu Maxin didn't push Yao Moen's hand away and allowed her to pat him as she pleased. That feeling was really comfortable. Behind them, Yi Junqing was worried that Duan Tingting wouldn't be able to adapt, so he didn't move forward and just stayed by her side. After Dage helped Yao Moen and the others settle down, Yao Moen was dragged out of the imperial palace by Kubu Zhe and Chu Maxin. Where are you guys going? Yi Junqing stood up when he saw that Yao Moen was about to leave. Sunshine Princess wants to take your highness out to relax. Is Prince not going to allow it? When Tingyu saw that Yi Junqing was approaching aggressively, she immediately stood in front of Yao Moen. Yao Moen didn't explain. She just felt that Tingyu's actions were laughable. Even if she wasn't blocking him, Yi Junqing wouldn't be able to eat her up. This prince was just asking. Yi Junqing felt that he was afraid of Yao Moen, very, very afraid. It was as if a single glare from her would make him kneel down. His heart felt empty, as if something was slipping away. He wanted to grab onto it, but he was powerless. Then Princess asked, "Can my highness leave now?" Tingyu glanced at Yi Junqing, then respectfully followed behind Yao Moen. Even after Yao Moen left, Yi Junqing still didn't understand what that rapidly slipping away feeling was. How could his heart be empty? Prince, this is Tingting's first time in Lulan. How about Prince also take Tingting out for a walk? A clear and melodious voice rang out and lingered in Yi Junqing's heart. It was as if a clear spring had been poured into his heart, driving away that indescribable feeling of emptiness. Sure. Yi Junqing's lips curved into a smile, but he didn't feel like smiling that much. Perhaps Yi Junqing would never know that Yao Moen wasn't just going to stroll around. Because King Lulan wasn't in the imperial palace, the first thing she did was ask Kubu Zhe to take her to look for him. In Yao Moen's heart, Yi Junqing's matter was the most important. As she looked at the mountain and water on one side, Yao Moen had to admit that King Lulan really knew how to enjoy life. A gust of autumn rain had just passed, so the green mountain and verdant valley seemed even more serene. A cool breeze blew gently, making one feel refreshed. Under Kubu Zhe's guidance, Yao Moen arrived at the pond in the rear garden. This pond was connected to the clear spring in the secluded valley. When stagnant water came to life, it had a unique smell that refreshed one's heart. At this time, King Lulan was fishing by the pond. He was dressed in a simple yet luxurious 1,000-feather ice silk robe that could keep him warm and dispel heat. It could definitely be considered a rare treasure. At this time, Yao Moen suddenly thought of Han Genie. If there was one person in this world that could be mentioned in the same breath as King Lulan, that person would definitely be Han Genie. Even someone like Yao Moen, who didn't care much about money, felt that this extravagance was somewhat infuriating. Imperial Father, Zhe has brought Big Sister Moen to see you. In front of King Lulan, Kubu Zhe would forever be a little princess who couldn't grow up. As long as she acted coquettishly, King Lulan would be so happy that his beard would curl up. Girl, you're about to get married, yet you're still so mischievous. King Lulan stroked Kubu Zhe's head dotingly. His kind expression couldn't conceal his reluctance to part. Imperial Father, Zhe doesn't want to get married. Zhe wants to accompany Imperial Father for the rest of her life. Kubu Zhe's face was completely red. As she spoke, she couldn't help but glance back at Chu Maxin, who was standing next to Yao Moen. I'm afraid you won't need Moen to make your clothes in the future. Yao Moen smiled knowingly. It was really unexpected that this pair of little enemies had managed to get together. Why? Chu Ma Xin lifted his brows and looked towards Yao Moen suspiciously. If you marry a princess, then this kind of thing should naturally be taken care of by someone else, said Yao Moen matter-of-factly. Who said this prince was going to marry her? Chu Ma Xin said resentfully. After a moment of hesitation, he continued. After a moment of hesitation, he continued, Yao Moen, will you come to this prince's wedding? How could Yao Moen refuse when she saw the anticipation in Chu Ma Xin's eyes? In her heart, Chu Ma Xin had long since become her own zhong'er. Of course, Moen has to attend Jair's wedding no matter what, said Yao Moen deliberately. Chu Ma Xin was speechless. A trace of darkness flashed through his eyes, and he didn't say anything else. Kubu Zhi'er is Moen's accepted daughter-in-law. Yao Moen smiled. Chu Ma Xin hesitated for a moment, then glared at Yao Moen. Yao Moen, you're taking advantage of this prince. Chu Ma Xin put his hands on his hips and pretended to be angry, but his eyes were shining brightly and filled with deep affection. Moen made so many clothes for you. Can't I take advantage of you a little? Yao Moen looked at Chu Ma Xin's expression and felt her heart lighten. At this time, Kubu Zhi'er had already walked over. Chapter 394. Big Sister Moen, Imperial Father is calling for you. We'll wait for you here. Kubu Zhi'er's face was full of smiles. I won't wait for her. Let's go. Chu Ma Xin grabbed Kubu Zhi'er and turned to leave. Yao Moen sincerely prayed for this golden couple. At this time, King Lulan just happened to catch a green and white koi. He held it in his hands and then put it back. King Lulan truly has the virtue of caring for living things, praised Yao Moen. In reality, she didn't think that way. These sanctimonious fellows, if a fish's throat was pierced by a golden hook, how many days could it live after being put back? This old man just didn't bring a bucket to store the fish. King Lulan was extremely honest. Yao Moen was speechless and a drop of cold sweat appeared on her forehead. Fine, she was wrong. When does King Lulan plan on marrying Zhi'er to Ma Xin? Yao Moen felt that it was too heartless to get straight to the point, so she changed the subject. That depends on when you guys can take Yihangi's head. King Lulan's slightly helpless tone surprised Yao Moen. What does King Lulan mean? Asked Yao Moen. If this old man marries Zhi'er to Great Shu right now and Great Shu forms an alliance with Yihangi in the future, this old man will help Great Shu regardless of whether it's out of kindness or reason. However, if Zhi'er still isn't Great Shu's daughter-in-law, this old man doesn't have this obligation. Of course, this old man is doing this because I don't want Zhi'er and Ma Xin to be in a difficult position. You understand. King Lulan's words caused Yao Moen to be momentarily speechless. It was clear that King Lulan was biased towards her in the matter of Great Shu's internal strife. However, she didn't understand what she had done to deserve King Lulan's help, even to the point of delaying Kubu Zhi'er's wedding. If this old man said that I admire that child Yi Junqing, would you believe me? King Lulan smiled when he saw the shock in Yao Moen's eyes. Yao Moen was speechless and shook her head. She couldn't believe a lie that was full of loopholes. That's true. Whether Yi Junqing lives or dies has nothing to do with this old man. This old man is doing this for that bowl of resurrection blood. Yao Moen instantly understood King Lulan's words, but there were still some things she didn't understand. Although this old man does not understand why you have the blood of resurrection flowing in your body, with this old man's ability, it is not difficult to find out the background of the mystery nation. Moen, if it wasn't for that bowl of resurrection blood of yours, Zhi'er wouldn't be here today. That's why this old man rejected the left emissary of Great Shu's iron-blooded army's request to form an alliance. This should be the purpose of your trip, right? King Lulan hit the nail on the head. At this moment, Yao Moen was filled with gratitude. Back then, she had only lifted a finger in exchange for today's great kindness. No matter how Yao Moen looked at it, she had profited. Moen will forever remember King Lulan's kindness, said Yao Moen emotionally. He never expected things to go so smoothly. According to what this old man knows, you came from Nanxiang, so the ruler of Nanxiang must have already been convinced by you. Otherwise, Duan Shiming's daughter wouldn't have come with you. Adding on the fact that you came from Great Qi and that the left emissary didn't obtain King Qi's seal of alliance, it seems that this matter no longer poses any threat to you. King Lolan's words caused Yao Moen to prostrate herself in admiration. He didn't even need to leave his residence to know about the affairs of the world. That was why it was said that although Lulan was overflowing with wealth, no other country dared to covet it. It was all thanks to King Lolan's help that Moen was able to successfully quell this crisis. Yao Moen expressed her gratitude once again. Now is not the time to be happy. Even if the alliance between the 6 countries is no longer possible, the King of Shu and the military commandant of the Iron-Blooded Army are sworn brothers, so Great Shu's attitude is still open to discussion. You still can't let your guard down. King Lolan's words caused Yao Moen's heart to turn cold. She had never expected that the military commandant of the Iron-Blooded Army would have such a great background. However, if soldiers come, we will use arms to deal with them. If some things can't be stopped, then you should gladly accept them. This old man thinks highly of you. King Lulan was full of confidence. Yao Moen smiled awkwardly, but in her heart, she was silently cursing a certain person for speaking so casually. After leaving the courtyard, Yao Moen, Chu Ma-xin, and the others turned to return to the imperial palace, but they unexpectedly ran into Yi Junqing and Duan Tingting on the street. Prince, this beaded necklace is so beautiful. Tingting likes it. Duan Tingting smiled like a flower as she fiddled with the necklace in her hands. Then this prince will give it to you. How much is it? Seeing that Duan Tingting was so happy, Yi Junqing casually took out some silver and handed it to the peddler. Prince, can you help Tingting put it on? Duan Tingting's cheeks were slightly flushed, and her voice was extremely soft. Yi Junqing nodded slightly, then took the necklace from Duan Tingting's hands. Then he walked over to Duan Tingting's back and helped her put it on. However, in a moment of carelessness, Duan Tingting had fallen into Yi Junqing's embrace. Yi Junqing felt an indescribable panic in his heart. He felt like he should push Duan Tingting away, but his hands froze and he didn't move at all, allowing Duan Tingting to lean into his embrace. Older sister Moen, what's going on? When Kubu Zhi and the others saw this, their expressions instantly turned cold. She had always thought that Yi Junqing and Yao Moen were a couple, but this scene was truly hard for her to accept. What a lovey-dovey couple. Yao Moen felt like she should charge over like a shrew and slap each of them twice, then kick them to the ground and spit on them to vent her anger. But now that things had reached this point, all she could do was stand there and smile bitterly. Your Highness, Prince is going too far. Tingyu couldn't bear to watch any longer and was just about to step forward to argue when Yao Moen stopped her. Let's take a detour. Yao Moen said this in a relaxed manner, but her heart felt like it was weighed down by 1,000 tons. However, before Tingyu could reply, Kubu Zhi had already charged over. What are you two doing in public? What kind of words are you two pulling each other? If you want to go to bed, you should find a place with no one around. What? Could it be that the two of you want to put on a show for everyone? You've already hugged, so now it's time to take off your clothes, right? Hurry up. Everyone's waiting to see. Yao Moen was flabbergasted by Kubu Zhi's impassioned speech. She suddenly looked towards Chu Ma-xin with some sympathy. Whose family's little shrew was this? She was too heaven-defying. When Yi Junqing heard this, he finally reacted. His face that was as red as a monkey's but clearly showed his anger. Sunshine Princess, please conduct yourself with dignity. When Yi Junqing retorted coldly, his gaze landed on Yao Moen, who was standing behind Kubu Zhi. Yao Moen felt that she was undoubtedly being treated as the mastermind behind the scenes. She felt that she had been wronged. She was just popular, that was all. Yao Moen didn't explain. This kind of thing would only make things worse the more she tried to explain. Also, there was no need for her to explain. How could Prince have the nerve to say those 2 words? Does Prince know what those 2 words mean? Kubu Zhi's mouth was truly vicious, Yao Moen thought to herself. At this time, Chu Ma-xin had already walked over to Kubu Zhi's side and muttered a few words. Kubu Zhi's eyes flickered, and her expression flickered with surprise. In the next second, she smiled at Yi Junqing. This princess drank too much and was just spouting nonsense. You guys continue. Yao Moen found the huge change in Kubu Zhe's attitude to be inconceivable. However, before Yao Moen had time to think about it, Kubu Zhe had already pulled her away. Prince, I'm sorry. Duan Tingting sounded like she was about to cry. Her tear-stained appearance made one's heart ache. Chapter 395. The one who should be apologizing isn't you. It's Junqing's fault that you were humiliated. Yi Junqing did his best to suppress his anger. He felt that Yao Moen could treat him however she wanted, but she couldn't bully Duan Tingting like this. After this commotion, Yi Junqing and Duan Tingting were no longer in the mood to stroll around, so they returned to the imperial palace. After sending Duan Tingting back to her room, Yi Junqing walked towards Yao Moen's room. When Duan Tingting saw Yi Junqing's figure disappear from her line of sight, a hint of worry appeared in Duan Tingting's watery eyes. The parasites had already been planted in Yi Junqing's body for 20 days. If it was any other man, they would have followed her into the tent a long time ago. However, she had hinted to Yi Junqing several times, but Yi Junqing didn't seem to have any intentions of picking a flower. It seemed that Yi Junqing's self-control was abnormally good, or perhaps he subconsciously didn't want to be too intimate with her in front of Yao Moen. If it was the former, then it would be better, but if it was the latter, then perhaps she really should create more misunderstandings like today. When Yi Junqing stormed into Yao Moen's room furiously, Kubu Zhe was in the middle of praising Chu Ma Bei with all her might, praising how handsome he was, how brave he was, and how extravagant he was. With the addition of Chu Ma Xin's exaggerations, it was as if Chu Ma Bei was a beauty that had fallen from the sky, and no one could compare to him. Yao Moen, this prince has something to tell you. Yi Junqing was about to explode when he walked in, but when he saw Kubu Zhe and Chu Ma Xin, he suppressed his anger. Ma Xin, go out with Zhe first. Moen will come find you guys later, said Yao Moen lovingly as she patted Kubu Zhe's head. Then older sister has to keep what Zhe said in mind and think about it properly, said Kubu Zhe seriously. Don't worry, Moen will think about it. Yao Moen forced out a smile. Marry Chu Ma Bei? Wasn't that just asking to be abused? Yi Junqing only took a step forward after Kubu Zhe and Chu Ma Xin left. What did Sunshine Princess want you to think about? Yi Junqing had forgotten his original intentions and walked in front of Yao Moen with a blank look in his eyes. Yao Moen didn't say anything and only took a sip. Lulan country's tea shouldn't be this bitter, Yao Moen thought. Sunshine Princess told my mother to consider marrying Chu Ma Bei. Now that I think about it, Chu Ma Bei is elegant, and as handsome as an immortal. He's a man that can only be found once in 10,000. Great Shu's strength is robust. If your highness marries Chu Ma Bei and becomes the empress of Great Shu in the future, your glory will be limitless. Ting Yu raised her brows and said resentfully, You want to marry Chu Ma Bei? How can I do that? When Yi Junqing heard this, he was stunned. His heart felt like it had been tangled up in a mess. Just the slightest tug was enough to make him feel like he was suffocating. Why not? Yao Moen lifted her brows and her eyes were as clear as water. There was hope in them. Even if she had promised strong southern prince, even if she was willing to become Duan Tingting, she still hoped that Yi Junqing would have a place for her in his heart. Even if it was just a little bit, it was still good. You have to help this prince defeat Yi Hongyi. You can't abandon this prince. Yi Junqing's words were incoherent. This wasn't what he was thinking, but he couldn't grasp the indescribable feeling in his heart, nor could he express it. Am I your mother? Why can't I abandon you? Yao Moen didn't get the answer she wanted, and her heart instantly turned cold. You, how can you say that? When Yi Junqing saw Yao Moen's glare, he immediately choked and his eyes flashed. Moen's mouth is on Moen's body. How Moen speaks is up to Moen. Does Prince wish to interfere? Yao Moen lifted her brows and her voice was as cold as ice. This prince didn't say I wanted to interfere. Yi Junqing was like a frosted eggplant. If Prince doesn't have anything else, then leave. Moen is tired. Yao Moen took a deep breath. She also felt that she had overreacted. Oh, that's not right. This prince wants to talk to you about something. This prince is warning you. You can be disrespectful to this prince, but you can't bully Duan Tingting otherwise. Yi Juanqing's words instantly infuriated Yao Moen. Otherwise what? Yao Moen stood up and walked towards Yi Juanqing step by step. Even someone as imposing as Yi Juanqing felt like he couldn't bear the unprecedented pressure. Otherwise, Yi Juanqing forced himself not to retreat, but he couldn't finish his words. This consort is asking you, otherwise what? Yi Juanqing, if you don't give me a proper explanation today, then see if this consort will let you leave this room. Yao Moen's eyes were sharp. Ever since she had been reborn, she had never been this angry. It was true that she was repaying a debt of gratitude, but repaying a debt of gratitude didn't mean that she should swallow her anger and submit to adversity. She definitely shouldn't allow anyone to threaten her, especially Yi Juanqing. Ahem. Yao Moen, this prince feels that it's not appropriate for you to discuss this matter with your current state of mind. This prince will leave first so that you can calm down. Yi Juanqing finally realized that he had infuriated this goddess, so the most sensible thing to do now was to flee. Prince, just try walking out of this door, said Yao Moen fiercely. Yin Shui was standing there expressionlessly in the direction she was pointing at. Yao Moen, don't go too far. Yi Juanqing was also angry. In any case, he was a prince, so he could be considered someone with status. This consort is indeed bullying people. What does Prince want to do? Yao Moen had endured for so many days, but it was like the lava under a volcano that had expanded to the point of eruption. Yao Moen, this prince might as well tell you the truth. This prince likes Duan Tingting, and it's very likely that she will become this prince's princess. This prince can tolerate you because of your achievements, but shouldn't you at least have the most basic respect for this prince's future princess? Yi Juanqing had been forced into a corner and started babbling nonsense. After he finished speaking, even Yi Juanqing found it inconceivable. How did he manage to say something so bold and imaginative? The room fell silent. Yao Moen's clear and cold eyes instantly dimmed, as if they were a pool of stagnant water without any ripples. Your Highness, Yi Juanqing, you're utterly devoid of conscience. Tingyu will fight it out with you. Tingyu's heart ached for Yao Moen as tears poured down her cheeks. At this moment, she really wanted to rush up and give Yi Juanqing a beating. How could there be such an ungrateful ingrate like Yi Juanqing in this world? Yin Shui, let him go. Yao Moen forced herself to stand steadily, but her legs were powerless. If it wasn't for Tingyu supporting her, she really would have made a fool of herself. Your Highness, we can't let this ingrate get away with it. Tingyu roared as she stomped her feet. Ahem. Actually, this prince's temper isn't that bad. Even when your servant girl insulted this prince like that, this prince didn't get angry. Yi Juanqing felt that the room was very cold, so cold that his entire body felt cold. When Yi Juanqing saw that Yao Moen's eyes were red, his heart ached. However, he'd already said it, so even if he wanted to take it back, it was useless. Prince, you should leave quickly. Otherwise, Yin Shui might not be able to hold back. At the door, Yin Shui's voice rang out like a sharp arrow. Yi Juanqing instantly felt that the situation wasn't good, so he fled for his life. Tingyu, help Master back to her room to rest. Yin Shui looked towards Yao Moen worriedly. Her face was deathly pale, and her lips were devoid of blood. She had seen Yao Moen and Yi Juanqing this entire time. Now that Yi Juanqing had said such hurtful words, he was simply worse than a beast. This consort is fine. All of you can leave. Yao Moen forced out a smile. She felt that she really was fine. At least she could still smile. Chapter 396. Nyang Nyang. Tingyu refused to let go. You guys also heard it. In the future, be more respectful towards Duan Tingting. Yao Moen threw down these words, then pushed Tingyu aside and walked into the bedroom alone. Tingyu and Yin Shui glanced at each other as they watched Yao Moen hurriedly push open the door. No, Tingyu has to find Yi Juanqing, and get to the bottom of this," shouted Ting Yu angrily. Just as she was about to turn to leave, Yin Shui stopped her. "If you go now, Yi Junqing will definitely blame your rudeness on Master. Don't be impatient. Yin Shui truly doesn't think that Yi Junqing is such a fickle person. Let's wait and see first," analyzed Yin Shui calmly. "In any case, if he dares to betray Her Highness, Ting Yu will fight it out with him." Ting Yu roared fiercely. For an entire day, Yao Moen locked herself in her room and didn't come out. Ting Yu blocked Chu Maxin and Kubu Zhe'er outside, saying that Yao Moen wasn't feeling well and needed to rest. During dinner, Kubu Zhe'er purposely set up a banquet to entertain Yao Moen's group on King Lolan's behalf. Just as Ting Yu was about to refuse, Yao Moen walked out of the inner chambers dressed in splendid attire. "Ting Yu, let's go now. Don't make everyone wait too long." Yao Mo Wan was in high spirits and in high spirits. Her beautiful face was lightly powdered, and her beauty was unparalleled. Ting Yu carefully examined her mistress. When she saw that Yao Moen's eyes were like the stars in the sky, resplendent like flowers, and without the slightest trace of crying, she finally felt relieved. By the time Yao Moen walked into the main hall, Kubu Zhe'er and Chu Maxin had already taken their seats. Yi Junqing and Duan Tingting were also present. When Kubu Zhe'er saw Yao Moen, she immediately walked over and Chu Maxin also stood up respectfully. Duan Tingting naturally wouldn't allow others to gossip about her, so she slowly stood up with a respectful expression on her face. This made Yi Junqing, who was sitting there, stand out. Ever since Yao Moen narrowly escaped from that room, Yi Junqing had been thinking about it over and over again. He felt that he hadn't said anything excessive, so Yao Moen's anger was unreasonable. Therefore, at this moment, he forced himself to look as if he was in the right. "Big Sister Moen, you're so beautiful tonight," praised Kubu Zhe'er sincerely. "Zhe'er is really good at talking. Every word is so caring." Yao Moen pulled Kubu Zhe'er's hand to the table, then summoned Yin Shui and had Ting Yu and Yin Shui take a seat together. "Big Sister Moen, in a few days, Zhe'er will be going to Great Shu with Maxin to play. Does Big Sister want to go with Zhe'er?" Kubu Zhe'er immediately understood when she saw Chu Maxin looking at her. When he heard this, Yi Junqing, who had been silent for a long time, inadvertently looked towards Yao Moen. However, he noticed that Yao Moen wasn't even looking at him out of the corner of her eye. "Sure." Yao Moen nodded with a smile. Since the matter of the alliance had been settled, perhaps she really should make a trip to Great Shu. Hopefully, she could convince the king of Shu to mind his own business. "Really? Then you're not allowed to go back on your word." Kubu Zhe'er was naturally overjoyed to see Yao Moen agree. "That's right. You can't go back on your promise, or else this prince will look down on you." Chu Maxin deliberately emphasized, unable to conceal the excitement in his eyes. "Look at what little prince is saying. My Nyang never goes back on her word. I just don't know if His Highness the Crown Prince will welcome my Nyang or not." Ting Yu purposefully emphasized the words His Highness the Crown Prince. Of course Mabe Gij will welcome her. Zhe'er often hears Big Brother Mabe praising Big Sister, saying that she's gentle and virtuous, beautiful and intelligent. In any case, in Big Brother Mabe's eyes, Big Sister is the most perfect woman in the world. Before Chu Maxin could speak, Kubu Zhe'er immediately cut in. Thankfully, Yao Moen had one hand on the table. Otherwise, she was really afraid that she would have slid off the chair. Yao Moen wiped away her sweat and turned to look towards Kubu Zhe'er. She really wanted to ask, "Are you sure that person was Chu Mabe? Are you sure that water hasn't gotten into his head?" "Big Sister Moen, are you all right?" asked Kubu Zhe'er worriedly when she saw that Yao Moen's expression was abnormal. "I'm fine. Since His Highness the Crown Prince thinks so highly of Moen, then Moen must thank His Highness the Crown Prince in person." Yao Moen smiled lightly as she agreed to this matter. When Yao Moen finished speaking, Yi Junqing suddenly put down his bowl. His voice was so heavy that everyone's gaze turned towards him. "This prince is full," said Yi Junqing coldly. He then got up and left without looking back. "Tingting is also pretty much done eating. Everyone, please enjoy." When Duan Tingting saw that Yi Junqing had left, she felt that there was no need for her to stay, so she just said a few words before leaving. Even a blind person could tell that Yi Junqing was angry, but no one cared. Yao Moen in particular hadn't even glanced at Yi Junqing since entering the room. Tingyu, on the other hand, looked in the direction that Yi Junqing had left with some regret. She felt that she still hadn't used her full strength, otherwise Yi Junqing might not have been able to walk out alive. After leaving the main hall, Yi Junqing went to the Imperial Garden in a fit of pique. He sat alone in the pavilion as his mind was filled with the words that had just been said. Yao Moen was gentle and virtuous, beautiful and intelligent. Chu Mabe's head had definitely been kicked by a donkey, and not just once. Is Prince angry? When Duan Tingting arrived, Yi Junqing was in the middle of muttering through gritted teeth. This prince isn't angry. Very good. If Yao Moen wants to leave, then leave. Who's going to stop her? Yi Junqing was clearly in a fit of pique, but he still refused to admit it. In this moment, Duan Tingting was finally sure that the reason why the parasites were so weak was because Yi Junqing's feelings for Yao Moen were too deep. This wasn't a good sign. Actually, if Prince doesn't want Empress Chu to leave, Tingting can go persuade her. Duan Tingting walked over to Yi Junqing's side with light steps, her limpid eyes sparkling. This prince wants her to leave. The further she goes, the better, so she doesn't keep bullying this prince. Also, don't go see her in case she gets angry. When Yi Junqing saw that Duan Tingting's eyes were like water, his heart inexplicably softened. But Tingting, just as Duan Tingting was about to speak again, Yi Junqing suddenly got up and looked straight at the familiar figure that was walking over from the corner. Huang Fu Juanxiu, why are you here? Chapter 397. Do you have proof? Yi Junqing's eyes darkened slightly, and his voice was as cold as ice. No, it was always the man who was at a disadvantage. Even if he cut open his stomach and dug out his heart, no one would believe him. Then that's it. Since you don't have proof, what right do you have to say that Huan Kaier drugged you? Also, you didn't say anything back at Ji Province's guest house. Now that you're marrying her to Great Shu, you're saying that you weren't willing. Huang Fu Juanxiu, as a man, you need to take responsibility. If you continue to be so harsh, there's no point in living anymore. Yi Junqing lifted his brows disdainfully. Then, Prince, what do you mean? Huang Fu Juanxiu choked as if he wanted to compromise. This prince will be returning to Ji Province soon. At that time, come back with this prince and bring Huan Kaier back to Great Shu. She's already your wife, so it wouldn't be good for her to stay in Great Shu, right? Said Yi Junqing solemnly. No, Huan Heng will beat me to death. At the time, Huang Fu Juanxiu had been in a fit of anger, so he couldn't help but say some outrageous things. As for taking a concubine, it was just to anger Huan Kaier. After calming down, Huang Fu Juanxiu actually felt that Huan Kaier wasn't a bad choice. With this prince here, this prince naturally won't let Huan Heng harm you in the slightest. However, you have to promise this prince one thing. Yi Junqing's eyes flashed as a scheme came to mind. What is it? Huang Fu Juanxiu looked at the smile on Yi Junqing's face and immediately thought of one thing: malicious intent. When Huang Fu Juanxiu stood in front of Yao Moen with a sincere expression, Yao Moen felt that she had underestimated Huang Fu Juanxiu's resolve. Lord Huang Fu still has the nerve to come see this consort? Yao Moen's eyes glowed as she held the teacup. Juanxiu knows that he shouldn't have acted impulsively, so he specially came to offer a humble apology, said Huang Fu Juanxiu sincerely. It's only right for you to offer a humble apology, but not to this consort. Lord Huang Fu should properly think about how to face old General Huan. Huan Kaier is Huan Heng's flesh and blood. You, on the other hand, eating meat for free is already taking advantage of you. Now you actually dare to spit it out? Yao Moen's gaze was cold and her voice was biting cold. Juanxiu already knows his mistake. I'll have to rely on Empress Chu to help me deal with this matter. Huang Fu Juanxiu lowered his head, and his attitude became even more respectful. You can't beg this consort for help. Huan Heng is the esteemed prince's subordinate, and the esteemed prince is currently in Lulan. Do you know what to do? Yao Moen felt that this face should be given to Yi Junqing. Although Huan Heng was asking for an explanation on the surface, he knew that if he really had a falling out with Huang Fu Juanxiu, the one who would suffer in the end would be his daughter. So as long as Huang Fu Juanxiu was willing to lower his head and admit his mistake, he wouldn't make things too difficult for Huang Fu Juanxiu. Of course, if Yi Junqing were to step in, Huan Heng would naturally be grateful. Huang Fu Juanxiu frowned and reflexively glanced at Yao Moen. His heart was filled with endless sorrow. Can I say that it was Yi Junqing who told me to come find you? Can I? Now that you think about it, this isn't a big deal. It wouldn't be good to alarm the esteemed prince. Also, Huan Kaier is just in a bad mood for a moment. Once Juanxiu arrives in Ji province and calms her down, she'll be fine. However, as for Huan Heng, Juanxiu can forget about asking Empress Chu to put in a good word for him. Huang Fu Juanxiu felt bitter inside. Yi Junqing had only told him to trick Yao Moen back to Ji province, but this excuse was truly hard to come up with. Lord Huang Fu truly thinks highly of this consort. However, I must disappoint Lord. In Huan Heng's eyes, this consort is nothing more than an idiot, and a powerless idiot at that. Does Lord think that father-in-law of yours will listen to an idiot? Yao Moen sipped her tea as she looked towards Huang Fu Juanxiu disapprovingly. Ahem. Perhaps Empress Chu hasn't revealed her identity yet, but if it's Miss Jingxin, Huan Heng probably won't ignore it. Huang Fu Juanxiu's words caused Yao Moen to shudder. Then she looked towards Huang Fu Juanxiu coldly. Miss Jing Xian, since this lady is so capable, then Lord should just go find her. Yao Moen's heart turned cold. Now that even Huang Fu Juanxiu knew that she was Jing Xian, this matter wouldn't be able to be hidden for long. Rather than being exposed, it was better for her to take the initiative first. That way, she wouldn't have to give others a chance to gossip. Huang Fu Juanxiu was speechless. Was Yao Moen refusing to admit it no matter what? If Lord Huang Fu doesn't have anything else, then this consort is tired. Yao Moen put down the teacup lazily, then leaned against the rattan chair and got up to leave the main hall. When Huang Fu Juanxiu saw that Yao Moen was leaving without looking back, he shook his head helplessly and left. When Yi Junqing saw that it was Huang Fu Juanxiu, he immediately rushed over. How is it? Yi Junqing's eyes were filled with anticipation. Prince, you should just let Huan Heng eat Juanxiu alive. Huang Fu Juanxiu's intentions were very clear. She's not willing to return to Ji province? What's so good about Great Shu? What's so good about Chu Mabe? What's so good about him that she has to go? She even called Chu Mabe a traitor. She even called him an ingrate. Why is she in such a rush to find him now? What a shameless fellow. Humph. Yi Junqing snarled hatefully. He didn't even notice Huang Fu Juanxiu's eyes darting around. Prince is talking about moral integrity with this consort? A cold voice drifted over from behind Yi Junqing. At this time, Yao Moen's expression was calm and her eyes were like two deep pools. There was definitely something fishy going on. Back then, she had forced Huang Fu Juanxiu to strip in front of everyone and parade him through the streets, so Huang Fu Juanxiu hated her to the bone. If it wasn't for the fact that she couldn't defeat him, Yao Moen was sure that she would have died at his hands several times already. This time, he had actually taken the initiative to look for her, so it didn't make sense. Thus, her guess was confirmed. Huang Fu Juanxiu, you shameless fellow. Do you think that the daughter of this prince's great general is someone you can bring back just because you say so? There's no need to beg. If you don't bring back this mountain of gold, don't even think about seeing Huan Kaier again. Yi Junqing didn't dare to turn around and glared at Huang Fu Juanxiu. In his heart, he was cursing all of Huang Fu Juanxiu's ancestors, starting from the apes. You clearly saw it. So why didn't you warn this prince? Why? Huang Fu Juanxiu really wanted to retort. Are you blind? My eyeballs were about to fall out. However, at this time, Huang Fu Juanxiu felt like he should shut up. The more he said, the more mistakes he'd make. Juanxiu will remember the esteemed prince's words. Huang Fu Juanxiu hastily cupped his hands in greeting before fleeing. In reality, Huang Fu Juanxiu felt like his actions weren't really described as fleeing. At most, He was just afraid of being caught in the crossfire. In Shui, help this consort back. When Yao Moen saw that Yi Junqing had no intention of turning around, she turned around coldly. However, just as she was about to leave, she saw that In Shui had already circled around to stand in front of Yi Junqing. It's true that In Shui feels that Chu Mabe is an ingrate, but now that I've seen Prince, In Shui feels that there are many types of ingrates. In comparison, Chu Mabe is truly the cutest type of ingrates. Even with In Shui's calm personality, she couldn't stand it anymore and her tone was filled with mockery. You? What do you mean? If he's the cutest type, then what is this prince? Yi Junqing didn't like hearing this. You're of the highest quality, replied In Shui bluntly. By the time Yi Junqing finally understood the word highest quality, In Shui had already left with Yao Moen. In Shui, you've been corrupted by your master. Who's the highest quality? You're the highest quality. Yi Junqing was enraged. What did he do wrong? Didn't he just have Huangfu Juanxiu look for Yao Moen? What was wrong with that? Perhaps Yi Junqing was too angry, so he didn't even notice that Duan Tingting had been standing behind him for a long time. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.